I truly wish that you didn't need to listen to this conversation with Jason Sokolowski. His daughter Penelope was a victim of a self-harm group called 764, and she took her own life in February of 2025, just 6 months ago. After recording part one of this conversation, I cried in my wife's arms, and I just took the rest of the day off and stood in the river and processed what I had just learned. If you have kids that have access to the internet, then you should know what's going on. Predators are weaponizing kids to hurt other kids, encouraging and rewarding self-harm, encouraging suicide, encouraging and rewarding the destruction of families. Jason reveals how these predatory groups operate, how they target vulnerable kids through gaming platforms like Roblox, how they use extortion and threats to maintain control, and how they systematically turn authorities against parents as a way to isolate their victims and maximize damage. He watched his brilliant, creative 16-year-old daughter get consumed in a matter of months, despite his monitoring and involvement. This isn't about panic. It's about recognizing that predators have evolved and that we must evolve. What follows is a raw conversation about what happened to Penelope, what Jason wishes he'd known, and what every parent needs to understand about evil people that use the internet to access our kids from their bedrooms. Jason, thank you so much for joining me on the Family IT Guy podcast and coming on to share the story about your daughter. If you don't mind, and tell me if at any point you don't want to talk about anything, but I'd like to hear a bit about your daughter, just from the perspective of A, honoring her, and B, trying to paint the picture for the people that are listening, for the other kids that might be listening, for the parents that might be listening and watching, to be able to relate to the fact that you are a human family with a human dynamic. Tell us about life before this tragedy occurred, and tell us about your daughter and who she was and stuff, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So we were a small, well-planned family. My wife and I didn't think we were going to have a kid, but then we had a discussion that developed into a larger conversation, and eventually we decided we were going to have, and we had an only child. We knew we weren't going to have any more. So we were very happy to pour all our resources into this one kid. Her name is Penelope. She was born in 2009. February 9th, 2005. Oh, shoot, I forgot her birthday.
Man, hey, I do the same thing sometimes. I can't blame you. So yeah, Penelope was Feb 9, 2005, and it's currently July.
2009. Sorry. No, she was, okay, so, sorry, I can't remember what the year that she was born now. I have not said this in a long time. But she was 16 this year. So, yeah, 2009.
Okay,
right?
2009, because we're July 2025 recording this. So she was born in Feb of 2009.
Yeah, February 9th, 2009. And that was the beginning of a pretty damn good family. We lived in Vancouver proper, in a beautiful neighborhood. Her summers were up on a beautiful cabin that was no road access, with a lot of cousins and family. And she had a pretty fantastic life. She loved catching snakes and spiders, and she wasn't scared of anything. She loved fishing. She loved all that stuff. And she was an extremely creative and brilliant mind. And she would just sometimes pump out poetry that, like, I would read it and I couldn't even critique it if it was an adult that wrote it. I would be like this, and I know I'm her dad, but I'd pass this around, and friends' eyes would pop open, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it just pours out of her sometimes." And then one day I said to her, like a couple days later, I was like, "So you still doing any poetry?" She's like, "No, I'm done with that." And then she's moving on. She's building costumes, like full heads and makeup and everything. And I am in the film industry, so I was like, a couple of my friends, I'm like, during the pandemic, I said, can you like, what do you think of this? And they're like, yeah, she's pretty good. I'm like, can you hone these skills and tutor her? And they did. And she loved it. She learned how to do a lot of stuff. And her empathy for the world and how she saw things, I just would love to listen to her in the back of the car talking to her friends about a movie that they watched, because she would pick up on these beautiful little things in the movie that I didn't even see, where she was talking about like this dad that was whistling at the end of the song, at the end of the movie, and how that was the song that was playing at the beginning of the movie when his baby was born. And I was like, I get chills
Wow.
thinking about it right now, because I was like, I didn't even notice that. And
Whoa.
she
She's
just
tuned
had
in.
she was a very sensitive, creative soul that the beauty that she saw in the world really went past other people's, over everybody's head most of the time. And so she was doing oil paintings and charcoal paintings, profiles of herself. We and so we knew that. And I said to her one day, I said, hey, because I had troubles with school and stuff like that. I said, because she was like, school's kind of stupid. And between you and me, one day when she was in grade 5, we got a call from the principal's office saying like, well, your strong personality of a daughter left the class today. But before she left, she turned around and said, you're all a bunch of idiots, and slammed the door. And my wife looked at me and was like, this is you. And I was like, yeah, this is me. And so,
Oh,
but the beauty
that's
was
great, right?
the beauty was talking with her principals and teachers, because there was another incident too of, she ended up punching a grade 6 boy, and she was in grade 4, because he kept bugging and bullying this group of girls. And we get a call from the principal again, your strong-willed daughter has punched one of the boys. We don't think this is a problem, but we have to go through the process. And we went there, and they how parents can kind of say, this isn't an issue, we just have to go through the motions here. And
Yeah.
it was one of those things that she definitely saw. She was frustrated with injustice in the world, and she would definitely do something about it rather than shy away. And so that was a time where I would take her, I'd get her guard down, and we'd go for a drive, and I'd take her to a A&W or McDonald's, and we'd have some food and sit in the truck. And I'd do that because my dad and I used to sit in the truck when we worked in construction. And I feel like the best conversations with your kid or family are generally in the car when you're alone together. And so anyways, we had that conversation where I said, you know what I'm going to be talking about today, right? She goes, I think so. I was like, so you got in a fight at school? Yeah. Tell me about it. And she's told me the story that they were sitting around, and this boy kept coming over and teasing them and bugging them. And then he finally called them a liar, which she got up and she said, I'm not a liar. And she punched him in the belly, and he went away. And not that I'm supportive of that, but I did smile a bit. And I said, like, you got a sense of justice, but I said, you do know you lose the argument through as soon as you throw a punch. And she's like, I know, but I was so mad. I'm like, I get it. Yeah. And anyways, we'd have those great conversations. And she just was. I remember holding her in one of those baby Bjorns on front of my chest as a baby. And I'd be at the
Yeah.
grocery store or something, and you know how older ladies would come up and go, ooh, look at that pretty little girl. Oh, pretty. More than one occasion, older lady come up and go, ooh, look at that pretty. Oh, she's really staring into me. I'm like, oh yeah, she's
Oh,
figuring out who you are to her. And she would intimidate almost anybody that locked eyes with her that she didn't know. She wasn't a kid that just dove into situations. She would stand back and watch what everybody was doing and wanted to know the outcome before she was involved. And so I have lots
wow.
of stories of other parents unsettled or like taken back by just her aura, her energy, her ability to almost command attention or respect, I think, rather than
Yeah.
I noticed adults wouldn't talk to her like a little baby very, very long. They recognized,
Oh,
oh,
that's interesting.
that what I'm saying is important, and I better be careful with my words because this person is really listening to me right now. And yeah, she's, and yeah, I mean, I could talk about her forever. Yeah, and I wrestle with the anger that comes up during this when I talk about her, because I know, and I'll touch on a little bit of this right now, and with parents and such, because it does come up. Parents are always going to feel blame for whatever situation their kid gets into, and I know that the accountability on my side as her dad, I know that I kind of broke her heart first as her dad. And it's the part that breaks me every day, because we were so connected and we were so. I know that she was excited about every time that we got to hang out or do something together or travel together. Um, and then we'll probably get into this, but when we got into the problems in my ex and I's marriage and separating, that's when a lot of this stuff came to pass and spiraled out of control. And I don't know. I feel like this world is eating alive the most vulnerable, and the most vulnerable of us. Not to take anything away from anybody else in this world, but there's a beauty in them and an understanding of this world and how it should be that is getting lost, I think, because so many of our creatives and neurodivergent or kids like my kid are not seeing our world supporting joy and beauty and happiness. I don't know.
I can understand why you would say that. There's a
Yeah.
lot of attempts, and this is the much of the nature of our conversation today is around, or will be around, a lot of attempts by, I don't even know what word to use. Evil sounds like an understatement.
I think evil is appropriate.
Yeah,
And being a voice of good in a world that a lot of evil voices are getting louder, I think
yeah.
is necessary.
It's like the
And
signal to noise ratio become, to use it, unfortunately a fairly technical kind of cold term, but like the signal to noise ratio is skewed, where like the noise seems louder than the signal. And if you're young and you're brilliant and you're sensitive, especially, I mean, even for people that are not young, but especially for people that are young, the noise can overwhelm,
yeah,
apparently and obviously.
yeah.
I, I
Just,
really,
I think.
I really, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I just started thinking when you were talking about all the noise, and that's what it is. It's not the big things that take you down; it's all the accumulation of little things that'll take somebody down. And it's like that noise. That's a
Yeah,
great way to put it. I like that. Is that it's not necessarily the loudest points or the biggest things. It's just all the noise becomes overwhelming because you can point at big things and go, "That's bad. We should deal with that," and it's something you can look at and we can all agree on. But there's it's not necessarily the loudest voices, but there's a lot more voices making a lot more noise. And I mean, social media, I think, is the thing that amplifies it and just pours it into all of our heads and brains. And we think that's
it
what the
is.
world's like when we get on social media.
It
And we
is.
forget if
And
you unplug it and we all make eye contact, the world isn't that way.
yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. I love that. That's a very succinct statement because reality is what is physically in front of us. Everything else that we see through a screen, and even to a certain extent, because you're in West Coast Canada, I'm in Northwest U.S. We don't have the privilege to be physically together. So even here, we're speaking through a screen, and there's parts of the communication that get lost. There's parts of the frequencies that we share and the vibrations that we share that don't transmit through a screen and through the internet.
Yeah.
And for what a beautiful mind. I love the movie story you told. A mind like that can take a minute detail from the beginning of the movie and follow the thread all the way to the end and then connect those dots. Whereas, like you said, yourself in the film industry didn't see that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take that type of a mind and that type of beauty and you drown it in noise, and that noise is people with harmful messages and things, how can it be anything but at least damaged? And that is facilitated by this enormous tool, platform, system, thing that is social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good segue into talking about the technology side. So I'm really glad we got to start with the real side, the human side about Penelope. Talk to us a little bit about the technology side. What was your family's sort of view on technology? What was her exposure to technology? How did that kind of work its way into her life?
It was something that I know when it first kind of was introduced, because, I mean, far as the quick technology, my daughter and I would play like Lego Star Wars on the PlayStation on a rainy day and things like that. And then we had an iPad in our home that was like, it was where we would play our music, and it was just kind of a central one for looking up recipes and checking out some social media stuff that her mom and I had, sending pictures back and forth with family. And she would participate in that and sit with it or whatever pictures. We put some rules, basically. Like, we're not sharing any pictures of our daughter online, even with her consent, because she didn't understand what that meant. And so, and her mom and I think it was around, because she entered puberty early too. And this is where we got tricked into understand, like, we thought she was older than she was, in a sense. Because her intelligence and ability to articulate her thoughts and feelings were so intimidating sometimes, where we forgot that she was just a little girl. But I think we introduced a phone into her life. It had no internet access when she was about 10. Other kids were starting to get one and all that. Maybe, no, it wasn't 10. It was about 11. Yeah. And there was only, like, while she went to school, she had it, and it had to be put away. It didn't have internet access. It was just so that she could call and text us directly. And then somewhere, though, things started to get away from... I felt like I was trying to catch up. And I don't want to speak ill of anybody, but that's, I think, is the problem why I'm separated now, is that we had parents feeling differently about how this should happen. So I made the decision, what do I have control over? My daughter has a phone now and has access to an iPad and a laptop. I think that was by about 12 she had that. And I didn't get a lot of say in that. So I said to her, here's the deal. Whatever platform you're like, in the beginning, she would play Minecraft just on her computer alone. But then she got into Roblox, which was presented to me like Minecraft online. And I said, okay. And so I would knock on her door when she was in her room for a while. And I would just kind of introduce myself and come in. And then I said, I just want to watch you play. I want to see what you're looking into. Pull up a chair. And like, who's that? And they were her friends from school. I said, okay, cool. And I said, I'm going to if you're online, I want to make a Roblox account for myself, and I'll be one of your friends, but it won't just say dad. You can just refer to me as like one of your cousins or something like that to your other friends that see me there. And that way I can watch from afar, because I said I'm unfamiliar with this. And so the deal was, as she kind of got involved a little bit more on the computer, if she was on another platform, I got to be one of her friends, and I got to watch her goings on. And I also made a deal that with her phone, that if I asked to see her phone, that I get to see it and look through it and all those kinds of things, because it was my phone and I was paying for her account under my package. And I would have done things very differently if I knew what I knew then, what I know now. But at the time, I thought I was covering all my bases, and I treated her involvement on social media like she was involved in volleyball or a baseball team. Like, I'm going to go to your practice. I'm going to go to your game. I'm going to sit and watch. I'm going to see what you do. I'm going to learn the game myself and see how this all works. But what I'm going to say to you now is something that will haunt me for the rest of my life, is I very much probably witnessed her being groomed on Roblox, and I didn't recognize it. I came in, she had she used to do digital art, so that's why we didn't mind. That's why her mom said, I give her the iPad, it doesn't have online access, and she can do digital art on there, because she's very creative. And she liked anime. So she had a little anime caricature of herself, and she had this other anime caricature of someone else. And she said, that's a friend that I've made online. We both do anime characters, and it's art and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And is that person there? And then I see, and then that they've got pictures of anime, and she's got pictures of anime. And she was doing a picture of her friend and her together in anime. And I was like, oh, this is nice. That feels supportive. That seems nice. And all the while, she was wearing one of my hockey jerseys, which at this point, her mom and I were talking about separation. So I was seeing that as she's missing me, or that I'm out of the house a little bit more often. And she would steal my clothes as a kid anyways. She always stole my clothes. So I didn't see any difference with it. But she started wearing my hockey jerseys, and I thought, that's nice. She's wearing my hockey jersey. That's cool. She's my number in her volleyball team. That's cool. She's doing art with another friend online. That's cool. But when I did permanently move out of our home, things spiraled out of control, where I wasn't able to check on her social media activities and be as involved as I used to be. And this is what I'm saying to parents out there, that they say, I am looking, I am checking. And I said, I was looking and I was checking, and it was there right in front of me, and I didn't recognize it because I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what this monster, how it operated, how it got its teeth into our kids. And I literally witnessed the grooming process a couple times, and I didn't see it for what it was. And it's my biggest deal about that. And I know your question was just about, okay, so yeah, Roblox kind of came in earlier on. Then it moved into, I remember her first Instagram account. That started to scare me, because then I noticed that she had more than one Instagram account. And then that's when I started raising the alarm, even at home. I'm like, why do you have more than one account? I don't think you should have more than one account. I think one account, that's it. Because and I got lazy in this one too, because of a separation happening and a divorce, and looking for a place to live. And in my employment, the film industry shut down. I was looking for a job, and I didn't realize there was this monster kind of seeping insidious into our lives, that was in the room with me when I was talking to my kid. And I couldn't see it or recognize it. And now I know that just social media by itself is the thing that is legally being created, and it's designed to addict our children to it. And the predators are very savvy on existing within social media, and they're not even seen. And the grooming, most parents won't even recognize it for what it is until they hear my story and other stories like it.
Well, and to be fair, if I put myself in your shoes, I've been working on computers professionally since 1995. I've been studying this topic of kids and being on the internet and the dangers that lurk for about a year and a half specifically. And right now, if I could somehow transport back and put myself into your shoes, I'm sure I'd have done the same thing. If I was lucky enough to be as engaged as you were, because by the way, that on its own right there, the stuff you've told me that you were doing is I'd be sitting here like, yeah, man, like that's, you were doing the best that you could and doing more than most. And that doesn't really matter. It's not a comparison thing. But sometimes like when you're working hard and doing stuff and you're not sure, I would have done the same thing. I would have been looking in and being like, that looks supportive. That looks positive, you know?
Yeah. And we had the parental apps, or like my ex had the app to monitor what was happening on her phone. But something I noticed too was even earlier, before she even had a phone or anything like this, we knew that kids can get around all this stuff. They're experts at this stuff. And especially when they have such an information exchange that they can do with these chat rooms, thousands of teenagers just talking to each other about, you know what you want to do? This is how you do it. This is how you get around this. But it was at, I think she was 8, maybe 7 to 8 years old. And the family iPad was on the table. And I just quickly looked at the browser history and I had all these Bollywood movies. Bollywood movies get around the parental apps because there's no nudity in them. But there's graphic sex, but they're wearing clothes.
Oh.
And I showed my wife. I said, look at this. She's watching Bollywood movies. This is kids at school. Like, hey, go to this website. It'll go by the parental controls because there's no nudity. But you're going to see adults having sex. And it's fairly graphic without nudity.
Wow.
And that's when I had a moment where even my wife and I kind of smiled. We're like, these kids are tricky. They're ahead of us. So that's why, like, she got my ex got the apps to watch her on the phone. And I said, I'm going to be involved from inside her room to outside as a spectator too. And even with all of that, it's like, I don't think parents remember being a teenager that is determined to see something that they've heard about or look into something. You can't stop them if they're determined or they want to.
Especially if it's accessible from inside their house on a keyboard, which is that's a new thing for kids.
Yeah. I look back to...
I'm curious to... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No. It's okay. It's nothing.
Well, I was curious, and sorry, my thing has like a little bit of a delay, so apologize if I'm talking over you, but
no worries.
The Instagram thing, can we continue on that thread? I want to connect, so because part of what I'm trying to do is just learn and understand, but like I said, just help to like relate, because I think so far your story sounds to me like very relatable. This must be the story that's taking place in most households on planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like, if you don't mind, let's continue with the Instagram thing and kind of keep going from there.
So and I don't mean this to be kind of snipey, but I didn't really get a say when, like, all of a sudden she had an Instagram account. So I was working backwards. But when she got the Instagram account, it was, I'd like to describe her account. I think it was exactly, it was tame. Like, it was like her friends and family and such could all see that and whatever. And then when I recognized on my phone, when I looked up passwords and such, that there was another account on Instagram under her, like an email address that wasn't mine, it was my daughter's. I said, I want to see this account. And so I made her open it up. And it was a little bit more of a teenage account that they were saying things that they didn't want parents to see and so on. And I kind of smiled at that. Like, I was like, okay, this is what I was expecting. I said, you know what? If I can be a friend of yours on that account, I'm going to let this slide. Otherwise, you got to shut the account down. I trusted her, so I still wanted her to have that freedom, because I learned a long time ago it was another parent that was talking about, he goes, if you put your kid in a playpen, when your kid starts climbing out of that playpen, don't put him back in the playpen, build a bigger playpen. So I saw her doing things, and I didn't want to just restrict it. I wanted to say, okay, I trust you. I get it. If I prohibit you doing this, it's just going to show up somewhere else. You're just going to avoid it. So I said, let me monitor this as your cool dad, and I'm not even going to tell mom about it. But I get it. You want to have a place where you can just swear and talk to your friends and whatever. And I'm not going to see your private messages, but I do want to see what you're posting and the general tone. But Instagram was the one where there was some suspicious stuff for sure. I saw another account pop up, but she was so smart that in hindsight, she made another Instagram account under one of my email addresses and unsubscribed to notices and such. So this is the other thing where parents are looking to find other accounts. They might be making it under your email address. So I'm not searching my email addresses. And so she had an Instagram account that was under my email address that was definitely something that was all red flags. Like, even her persona on it was that she was evil. And I don't think any of her friends knew about it. These were just her online friends. But the part with Instagram too is that, like, it's Instagram's like this hip club that all of us adults get to go to. And then we just all of a sudden just said, yeah, we're letting kids in too. At 24/7, 24 hours a day, you can come to Club Instagram, and we're letting all our kids in. And if your kid's 6 years old and has internet access, he or she's coming in too. And we're allowing our teenagers to show up into clubs where they are trying to, like, you remember if there was an older kid in the group, you wanted to impress that older kid and act older than you were. And I think that's what's happening, is that they see these older, Instagram models, and they're bombarded with, do you look good enough? Are you sexy enough? Are you healthy enough? Are you the right weight? And they're bombarded with all this stuff. And these kids want to keep up with these adults. And this is the first time that I saw pictures of my daughter that were a little bit more her showing her body. And then that's when I talked to her mom and everybody else and said, and she's like, well, we got the parenting app. There's nothing happening there. And I said, yeah. But she knows her way around that. I said, she made the account under my email address. So I don't think it even registered on the parenting app, because it's just monitoring her known email addresses and her accounts. So she knows ways around it. And I was impressed with how well she knew how to navigate all this stuff, better than all of us that have been on social media longer than they've been alive. So yeah, Instagram, I think that's where I put it. It was definitely the first warning signs of something more, that maybe this isn't a good idea. And that's where I equate it to. It's like, we created this social nightclub that everybody wants to be a part of, every adult, every young adult. And then we've invited all our kids in, and they're trying to be a part of it. And I think, and Instagram, I think, leads to all the other places like Facebook and TikTok and all those things, because those are all shared on there too. You can share TikTok reels on Instagram. And then that's where I saw my daughter's her first TikTok account showed up. And I think this was just shortly after the pandemic. And so I said, hey, you can't make accounts without letting me know. I can't find out about it and then make an account. We agreed to do this at the same time. So I felt like I was trying to catch up to her. And as soon as I had a TikTok account and I was monitoring her account, I realized she had more than one TikTok account. And then she would shut one TikTok account up and then open up another TikTok account. And then I was also in the middle. This was at this time, by the time we were starting to be separated. And something happens with parents when you're separated and you got a child. You soften a little bit because you know this is going to be hard on them. Yeah. And you also don't want to be the bad parent, and you want them to hang out with you, and you want them to trust you, and you're just trying to do what you think is best in that situation. But when you don't understand the consequences of that situation, what you think is best is sometimes contributing to a horrible outcome. And so with her TikTok,
yeah, go ahead. You're just going to say with her TikTok account? Yeah.
Well, that's where I started to see with Instagram a change. She definitely was becoming more emo and wearing certain things and acting a certain way, a lot more makeup. And it wasn't until she had her TikTok account where she also had, she was fairly popular fairly quickly. She had 2,500 friends, and she was getting a lot of likes because her content, she was kind of cool, she was creative, she was edgy. So I thought, wow, Jesus, this is she's popping on this. We have to be careful with this. But I was one parent that was more worried about it than the other. And I don't mean that negatively, too, is because the situation we're in, I don't know. I know friends that their kids are just fine with their situation. But it was kind of a perfect storm where I was the only one worried about this thing and seeing signs that I was worried about, where it was kind of dismissed of well, she's 13, she's got a lot going on. I've got her on antidepressants, which I found out after the fact. I didn't know my daughter was on antidepressants when she was 13. I found that out later. And yeah, and but Instagram was when I first started to see her, not a little girl on Roblox kind of checking things out, be kind of curating a look and an image, and it seemed to be getting noticed. And I realized later now why she had all those friends was because she was part of a larger group already at that point. And
and if she's experiencing depression and then she goes on to a place, to Club Instagram, or the moment she goes into Club Instagram and Club TikTok and all these places, it's just, as far as I understand, the actual literal chemical process is a dopamine feed.
Yeah.
It increases the dopamine drip, and the algorithms in the social media systems actually create a sort of a wave. So they'll purposely increase the dopamine drip during certain parts of the day and then dial it back down and then bring you back up and dial it back down. And so if you're a depressed 13-year-old girl and then you go onto a place and then it triggers the happy chemical in your brain, the heck are you supposed to do other than keep going back to that place? Especially if you're popular. I mean, that's a lot of followers and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And you find, if you feel like you've been, she was changing from grade school into high school and friend groups were changing. She was feeling alone. And I saw that she was pulling away from a lot of her regular friend groups. And so I think she found a place where she felt, and she was identifying as non-binary or possibly bi. So she was exploring her sexuality. And as parents, we were a little bit she's found some community here. But even though I had concerns and red flags, at the same time, I didn't want to come in and just be wrong necessarily that this is the only community that she's kind of found. And she did have a friend that we knew of and we monitored that was closer to LA that she had known for years now online. She'd become friends with her on Roblox a long time ago. And this was a legitimate friend. We had FaceTimed, we'd seen her, we'd met her mom, talked and all this about the relationship. So it was just so complicated that she did have a good friend she was very similar to, that she met online. So we didn't want to take that away from her. And with with her finding who she is, like I got into heavy metal music and all that kind of stuff, and my parents were worried
Yeah.
about my influences, and I just was like, okay, this is heavy metal just amped up to 11 type of thing, to quote Spinal Tap. But
That's a good reference, man.
yeah.
Yeah, no, me too. Same thing. I mean, you try to relate as a parent. Okay, even if it's male versus female, okay, yeah, kids go through stuff. But 13-year-old girls, especially the really smart, brilliant, creative ones, they go through stuff. They end up being the ones with emo and kind of going into darkness and trying to find their way. And yeah, so right, if you come in and you just clamp down like you're the police, I mean, dude, yeah, because then you're just going to feel like you're just going to drive them away, right?
Well, and be responsible for a negative outcome. And because I don't know, I didn't know at the time, that's like worst case scenario, your kid's on social media a lot, and if that's happening, well, we're going to shut it all down and turn off the Wi-Fi. And we did things like that too, because my daughter and I, like, we would go on a trip to Ontario. I live in British Columbia. I'm from Ontario. So we would travel together for a week. And there wasn't much online stuff because we'd be doing stuff, going to roller coasters, visiting family and friends. Spring, summer to fall, she would be up at the cabin here in British Columbia with her. She had honestly probably a dozen cousins and aunts and uncles and whatever. And it was motorboats and fishing and catching snakes and hiking trails and all that kind of stuff. So we felt like she had a healthy balance, and she participated in all that stuff quite a bit. But this is the thing, is like understanding how fast social media and the predators that are on social media can act on a vulnerable child at the right moment and have an effect. I'm going to say that the timeline that I saw, that my daughter probably was first being groomed to her being fully in it, part of that group, maybe brainwashed, was maybe a matter of 3 to 6 months, and she was in.
Wow.
And there was no really pulling her out. And that's something that I'm seeing, is people are just thinking, okay, we'll get them off social media for a bit, pull them away from the devices. But I don't know if you know the story of Amanda Todd here in British Columbia. She was
I don't believe I do.
She was one of the first national cases in Canada and maybe even North America of online extortion in about 2012. Well, it happened a little bit earlier. She had a YouTube video. She would sing and do stuff, and then she had a fan that showed up, got her to sing and do stuff for him. Then photographs were shared. Anyways, she and her mom got onto it and found out. They pulled her off of everything, the devices and everything, therapy and all this stuff, for about 6 months. And then it got reintroduced into her life. And then she did a YouTube suicide note and killed herself shortly after that. And the person that extorted her was never really out of her life, and she was always wanting to be connected to him. He's serving, I think, 6 years in Denmark right now. So Carol Todd is one of the she's the mom. She runs the Amanda Todd Foundation here in BC. She's a teacher who has gone around the world now educating governments and teachers about social media.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I need to look that up and learn more about that. It's
yeah.
That's the thing. When I think about tech and restrictions and monitoring and surveillance and controls and conversations and therapy, and I haven't found an answer, because you take it away at home, they go to school, and their friends at school will give them the phone to use. There's whole ecosystems now where there's kids that there's like these little entrepreneurial kids that create rental programs where you can use the phone, and Officer Gomez here in Idaho just told me that a common thing that he's seeing because of the way that these systems are normalizing the exchange of, like, they're attaching a child's value to their body parts, that children are now exchanging sexual favors in order to gain access to the internet at school. And that this is, there's a lot there, and I don't even know how to begin to unpack it. And, you know, because you're talking about the stuff, like I said, the stuff that you were involved, thoughtful, concerned, participating. I don't know. It just this is where I'm glad that you and I, that you're sharing your story and that we get to talk about this, because it just, these conversations are so powerful and so useful, because this is one of the most fundamentally challenging problems I have ever been exposed to.
Yeah. And I'm noticing this on my TikTok. A lot of people are coming into my comments and even direct messaging me about like the blue whale challenge that happened a while back, and other types of extortion that have happened online for a while. And I said to somebody, I said, like, because somebody made a glib comment of like, oh, this has all been around for a long time. I said, yeah, it's all individually been around for a long time. But now it's everything all at once, with an ideology behind it and an older organization. And we have a social, the problem is like the predators didn't come up with social media. That's a separate thing, is that the ruling classes, the billionaires in our world, have created this, like, I'm going to go pull back to another thing. I think this applies to it. Like you were talking about the dopamine hit of the likes, and that psychological, like it's a well-known now psychological thing that happens of, you know, just give them that dopamine hit, bring them back in, send them a little notification that says, do you want to see what so-and-so said about you? You're back in, hit like. And it just, they can monitor and keep that going. And I'm like, that's been around for a while too. There's adults that can't leave a casino. It's the same dopamine hit of winning a little bit, winning just enough, or even just like the slot machines and all that. And if adults can't pull themselves out of a casino, our kids are helpless to this. And so we've got billionaires making billions of dollars on creating relationships with our children with no no regulation or input by the parents. And how are we as adults allowing relationships to be created with our children legally that are profitable, that also nurture, I'm going to say, predatory behavior by the worst of us? It's not, you couldn't, if somebody said, well, what would you do to solve this? I'm like, you can't. I would get rid of electricity and have us walking around with donkeys and pots and pans for a while again and learn about the stars. But we can't do that, because we got ruling classes and the billionaires defending that they're not responsible for third parties on, I'm going to say, the arena that they created. They create an arena called Facebook or Instagram or club. The club, will stick with that analogy. But if a club was in our neighborhood and it was spitting out dead kids and harmed kids in the basement, we would burn that motherfucker down in an instant. But now we have no accountability for the arena that they created purposely to get our kids' attention and have them hooked on it, and then protect the predators that are extorting our children and making them do the most evil, heinous shit that you could ever imagine.
Sometimes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just, how do you fight this beast when literally half the people I live with are defending the beast? Like
Yeah.
other parents going, it's fine. No, he's fine on it. Oh, they have fun and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and then here's the thing. The person that groomed my daughter has called me directly. It's part of what they do. So when your kid goes on to these things and so on, and they get involved in a group like 764, and there's other ones that are popping up differently, Harm Nation, Cult, that kid gets love bombed and told everything that they do is great. And they love hearing that, and they become part of that. Then, show me a drawing, do a drawing that can do a drawing of you and I. And then it gets a little bit more into a photograph or something a little bit more risque or whatever they can get that kid to do. And then the extortion happens when that kid tries to pull away. Because I know my kid tried to pull away. She knew it was frustrating and she tried to pull away, and she did. She blocked them and everything on there. This is my story. It can't be told in one thing. There's so many levels to this. It's unbelievable. But so I understand that when she was on there, when she wanted to pull away, they showed her that they have all of her parents' private email addresses and our phone numbers and our address, and they said they're going to kill us. So my daughter thought that if she pulled away from them, that her mom and dad were going to get killed by this group. So now she feels responsible for the situation that she's in. And she's also scared that what she's already shared with them is going to be sent to her school, which they send her. They know what school she goes to. They know where it is. They know some of her friends. And just imagine, like, even as an adult, that you're involved with somebody and then they say, give me this, or we know where you live, we know your name, number, and they put it on the screen. So I'm on DocSpin, the same with my ex and my daughter and all our private information. And the author on it is Culprit, the person that groomed my daughter. And so I know that my daughter was wrestling with the fact that she thought she was protecting her mom and I. She pulled away when they asked her to torture her cat. She loves her cats, so she's never going to torture her cats. But she dabbled with it because I found pictures where she sent pictures of her hand around our cat's neck and things like that to try and placate them. I knew she wasn't doing anything dangerous with the animals in these pictures, but I think she was trying to placate them so that she could still be part of the group, because this is a group that she feels like she has celebrity status, belongs in, but also if she leaves, then the people that she loves are going to die, and or all the embarrassing secret things that she's done online are going to be exposed to her friends and family and the rest of the world. I don't know many adults that could handle that situation without losing their mind.
No, very,
And
very
we have the
few.
capacity to understand that this isn't going to be forever. We'll get over this. But a child doesn't. They think their life is over. They don't understand that they.
Yeah. I mean, and that's on our best day. Any adult on their best day would have a low chance at making it through that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who's got the experience and wisdom and extreme self-confidence? I mean, yeah. It's, so for a kid, especially, trying to take all that in.
That's the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around, and I still kind of keep it at arm's length, because that outcome was like, what must have been going on in her mind about, like, just shame and guilt and responsibility that no human being should ever feel in their life at that level.
Yeah.
And like I said, this guy, Culprit, has called me. He pretended he was a friend of hers in the beginning. I think he called whenever he lost contact with my daughter, reached out to the others. And he pretended he was a friend of my daughter's to me. And he was asking like how she's doing and so on. And he called me around the time that my daughter put herself back in hospital again. He had lost contact with her. And then he called again down the road and pretended to be that friend again, but then he started messing with me, started revealing that he knew intimate details about my daughter and I's relationship. And then the third time he called, all gloves were off, and he was just looking to trigger me and anger me. And he's also left 2 voicemails on my phone. He didn't realize he left one, which is the smoking gun that I have that I've given to the cops, and I give everything to the cops, and I have a private investigator involved too. He hung up, and my voicemail picked up, and it's him just going, Soko. My last name's Sokolowski. My business name is Soko. I just created 2 accounts for my business, Soko, just to grab them, so I had that name. So he's like, Soko, who the hell's Soko? And I just made those accounts like a week ago. And then he's talking to somebody in the background, and he goes, I don't think I could groom her again. And then he's clacking away, and then he's like, oh, how do we have access to her Roblox and nothing else? And I have this all on a voice message. But this is the helplessness. I have everything. I have his name. I've talked to him, and he's a kid. This is like friends of mine are like, don't you just want to kill him? And I'm like, yeah, honestly, there's a part of me that would want to pop his head right off of there. But then there's a parent in me going, this is a kid. This is another victim of this group. And when he's talking to me, he's talking to me like he wants me to be his dad. And it's just like, for me, it's a mind fuck for me. Sorry the language, but that's exactly what it is. I can't imagine how my daughter processed what she was going through.
I've thought about the same thing where I see how there's a lot of kids that are perpetrating this stuff. Same thing, man. Same thought is like this grappling of defense and help and like sadness and empathy and anger of like, well, why does a kid do that? Okay, we know the reasons why they do that. So then it's easy to be sad for that kid. And I've been hearing more and more about this where the perpetrators of grooming are those that have already been through the cycle of being groomed themselves. Exactly. And are furthering the cycle. And they're not the first step in the process.
Exactly.
And I actually just learned what grooming actually means recently. So just for folks like me that may not have really known, it just means making something normal. It means taking something that wasn't normal and making it normal. So a lot of times it's around sexual stuff, it's around violence, or it's around self-harm. So grooming somebody means taking a thing that they would normally be immediately repelled by and getting them to the point where they are no longer repelled and they're actually participating.
Yeah.
And it's kids.
Yeah.
Doing it to other kids.
Yeah. There was law enforcement here in Canada that caught one of these groomers. And how it was presented, and I'm glad that the mother in Alberta that I'm friends with too, her daughter was groomed by the same group. She got to say it to them because the cops were like, we caught one of them. He's 15 years old. He's been involved since he was 10 years old. And immediately it was like, you caught one of the victims. You didn't catch it. Like, this is an expendable child to this group. Yeah. And I know that my daughter, I hope, I don't know, may have been one of the preteens going into Roblox to invite kids into 764. Because that's how that operates, is within Roblox, they generally go in there, target certain kids. Hey, you want to come over here? We're going to show you some stuff you've never seen before. And it's an older kid. If you're an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old's attention is amazing. When you're 12, a 14-year-old's attention is amazing. And they feel like they're part of this exclusive club where they're recognized and celebrated. And that, I mean, most adults are guilty of falling for those feelings too.
100%. There's about 5 billion of them right now that are addicted to social media. 5 billion of, I say them, us.
Yeah.
5 billion of us. We are part of that problem. We are part of that cycle. It's totally normal at this point, speaking of things being normalized, for that to flow right down to the kids, because we haven't even grappled collectively with what it means for adults to be caught up in this stuff. But it's hitting us real hard, and has hit you the hardest, of getting caught up in this and what this means. And part of me, I'm always thinking, and maybe it's just me being a guy, is like, what's the solution? What's the answer?
Yeah. We want to fix it. We want to solve it.
And I can't help but think that a lot of school systems have a lot of responsibility here, because, man, okay, I graduated high school in 1998. I was already working in the IT field. I had the pager and the old school cell phone and stuff, because I was doing tech support. After school, I would go drive to a customer's house.
Mm-hmm.
And at those times, you had to leave the phone in the car. You had to leave the pager in the car. You couldn't bring a pager into school. Back then, it was because they thought you were a drug dealer. But nonetheless, you got to leave the pager in the car or at home or whatever.
Yeah, you're a nerd or
How
a
the
drug
heck did
dealer.
we get from? Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. You're fixing computers or you're dealing drugs. Pick one.
Yeah.
And at what point did adults that administer schools go, you know what, man, screw all that. Let them be on the internet and chatting and take all the complexity out of it. Let them be distracted by this little buzzer in their pocket. And so now here we are. So now it's normal for most schools on the planet to allow children to have these distractive buzzers that turns out are actually super addictive and dangerous drugs with them all the time.
Yeah.
So no matter what the situation is at home, whether the home situation is restrictive with regards to the internet or whether it's completely unrestrictive, well, for the other half of the day while they're at school, it's completely unrestrictive. Because these ecosystems of kids being entrepreneurs and renting out internet access, those ecosystems are enabled by the policies that allow the behavior.
Yeah.
In an explicitly supposedly controlled, relatively controlled environment, which is a school, which is like, hey, when you're in our school grounds, there's rules that exist in the geographical boundaries of this environment that are different than the rules outside of the environment. And not only that, but then the schools are giving Chromebooks. Like my kid got a Chromebook in second grade. Nobody told me. The school created a Google account with his full name and private information and birthday. Nobody told me.
That's insane. I'm glad in British Columbia we actually have given power to the teachers in their classrooms to remove social media or lock up the phones. That just happened a couple of years. That happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
You saying that's upsetting. Yeah, like I would be showing up at the school going, whoa.
Oh, dude, they don't care. No. They do not care. And I say they, okay? So let me be specific. Yeah. I'm not blaming teachers. I'm not blaming principals. I'm not blaming the people that actually facilitate the education process that sit there physically with the kids. There's people that are abstracted above that level, and it's probably based on a political environment of who gets funding and who gets voting, because that's how it always goes. That there's an unlimited number of videos online of parents being at school board meetings, losing their minds, saying, "Look at the damage you've done."
Mm-hmm.
Nothing changes.
Well,
You know,
this is
so
it. We're divided down here, where some people are celebrating social media and the access to it, and they want their kids to be fluent in it. And even the kids that are renting out their social media, that's a capitalist. That's to be celebrated.
Yeah.
That's a smart kid. Why are we damning him for doing that? That's smart. I remember a kid used to do that in elementary school with me. He would lend out money to kids that didn't have milk money, but he would charge interest every week.
No way.
I still owe that kid because I borrowed 35 cents off of him in grade 7, and I never paid him back. And I do look over my shoulder to see if he shows up one day. Remember that 35 cents?
Yeah.
But that's what I agree too, that if a kid sees a situation to say, hey, I can capitalize on that, that's good. But when we're kind of handing something to them, say, capitalize on this horrible thing, like this is just it. It's in the realm of cigarettes, where doctors were prescribing cigarettes. They don't understand how dangerous this thing is, how addictive it is, and that kids are smoking, your parents are smoking. Here's
a cigarette that can read your mind and feed the smoke into your lungs based on how you feel, even if you don't feel like smoking.
Yeah, this monster is so insanely adaptive, intelligent, well-financed, and protected by the existing situation and systems and ignorance. Because somebody said, what's the thing we're doing now that when we're older we'll go, I can't believe we did that? We're doing it. We're experiencing it right now.
It's this.
We're handing our kids... We're going to know as a society that was as dangerous as letting kids run around in traffic. And I've used this analogy as like, people go to me, well, we don't need police state on cell phones. And I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about that we understand the accountability on all parts here. You created this thing that's in our society. You're accountable for making it as safe as possible. You're going to use this thing that's created in our society. You need to be educated and understand how to use it, and that there's, certain minds and maturity needs to be developed before you can use this thing. Just like when cars showed up in our society, they were just driving around, and then suddenly kids were getting hit or dying in them. And then we said to the car manufacturers, you got to make them safer. Seatbelts, bumpers, horns, and whatever. And as a driver, okay, you need to be trained and you need to be insured. And as a society, let's put the infrastructure in with stop walks and everything. And this is where we say it's natural. One of the first things you're teaching your kid, look both ways before you cross the street. But we hand them an iPad and go, have fun. You got a half an hour. I'm pretty strict. It's that line, and I think one of your interviews too, it's the big thing that I think resonates with parents. You're not giving your kid access to the world. You're giving the world access to your kid. And the world don't give a shit about your kid. Chris Rock does a bit about that. He likes to remind his kids when they leave the house, nobody out there cares about you. And even some of the people in here don't like you that much, but we're the only people that love you. So
it's true, man.
Out there.
I mean, and that's the interesting thing, is where seems like we're a tribal species. And when I think of tribes, I think of maximum accountability. I think of maximum connectedness. I think of minimal size. Right, like some people in the business world theorize that once a group become like a working group of adults becomes bigger than in the low 100s, like 120 people, something like that, people start to not know the names of everybody. You get disconnected.
Yeah.
So when I think of a tribal species, I think of like maximum connectedness. Even if it's like a neighborhood in the 50s that you see in the movie where The kid's doing something he's not supposed to do a block over. Well, that mom knows your mom and she's bringing you home, you know?
Yeah.
And so now there's this like weird sort of these collective information platforms where there's zero accountability for any player. And that's just the nature of it. Like no matter what government tries to do anything, the internet doesn't operate within geographical or regulatory boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, so one thing I think about a lot is leading by example. The thing is, I think that is what you were doing. And I wish I could implant that into like the school systems of like, okay, school administrators and school politicians and bureaucrats, like what example are you leading by? If you don't have an understanding of social media, what's your addiction? You know, what does that look like? And how can you relate that to the kids that are in your care? At the end of the day, these kids are in these people's care.
Yeah.
So I'm focused on the schools only just because it's like that's half the day and that's where they're away and that's where there's like a lot of terrible stuff going on lots of fronts, but a lot of it in the exchange of information and which information is healthy and which behaviors are healthy and which are not. So, okay, so let's talk about the 764 group. I've been hearing more about them. They're showing up in the news. The American Federal Police, the FBI, supposedly have like 55 of their field offices have like active investigations into this decentralized, headless. Is it a network? Is it just it's a group of ideas? It's a group of practices. Tell us what you know about 764. How do they work? Who are they? What do they do? What's their purpose?
Well, I guess I could go with the facts on this one. That 764 was created by Bill Cadenhead. I think I'm saying his name right. He's serving right now, I think, 80 years in Texas. I think he just turned about 19 or 20. He put out on the dark web a guidebook on how to groom kids, which it's insanely easy, especially when you can target somebody vulnerable, which is what I say is all children are vulnerable. Your child is too. So 764 was the area code that he was living in Texas. And he created this group. I think his name was Felix at the time. And it was inspired by a French one called Cult with a V, CVLT. He was inspired by Cult in the gore that he had on there and the cutting and stuff like that. And so I think they worked together a bit to just kind of create like exchange information. They were peers. I want to do this too. I want to do this too. But Bill Cadenhead took it to a larger level where he was grooming boys into other guys wanted to do what he was doing too. And so that guidebook, How to Groom Kids, went out. And then so now he had these boys, incels, angry boys, whatever you want to call them, that wanted to be part of this group and part of the gore and part of all this stuff. And I think there was an excitement of this kind of group has never really existed for these types of people. You're usually an individual, a son in a basement, you know. Pedophiles generally don't get to hang out with each other, and these guys were on that level. So now 764, I think, started to grow fairly quickly. And there's a mother, Maria, in Alberta here, Canada. Her daughter is 19. She was one of the earliest ones groomed by Bill Cadenhead and a couple others in there. And what I know is that they existed on Discord for the most part, because I guess it just catered to their needs. It was an invite only. And teaching his, I almost say apostles, his peers, these kids, to go and invite kids into this group and show them things in a certain level where, you know, is shocking, but not, you're going to build it up for these kids. So I learned that they basically go into Roblox to invite these targeted vulnerable kids into their group and then start practicing extorting. And in the early years, they had success with probably the most vulnerable or the, most likely to. And what I started to understand now is that they're at a level when I saw one of the discussion groups that was open on my daughter's laptop after her first suicide attempt when I went home and I cleaned up the bath. Oh, sorry. Yeah. This is when I'm going to tell you right now, which ties into when I first started learning about that 764 is the deal.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a bit, but I told you earlier
No.
that my daughter had texted me from the bathroom to say that she had cut her legs. Did I tell you that, Hart?
No, we haven't talked about that yet.
Okay, sorry, I might be veering off here.
You've been talking to a lot of groups, and so I don't blame you, man. So,
Well,
but yeah, please.
To explain
if you don't mind sharing.
764, the facts that I know about it are out there. You can put it into Chat GPT, and it's going to say everything I'm about to say. Bill Cadenhead started it. I think it was in 2020 or something like that.
Yeah.
But by the time it was up and running, and he had 8 to 10 other groomers on there of a variety of names of Cascar and Culprit and Corpse and Felix and all these guys, which you can find online, all this information. I guess he was found and prosecuted for a particular case, and that's why he's serving 80 years now. But the group stayed up and running with the rest of the group. A couple of the parent leaders were just arrested earlier this year, I think in March. But the thing is, every time I get news of them catching one of these guys, it's a name that I haven't heard of. I've heard of a bunch of names, but I'm hearing other names of the ones they're catching. And people are like, hey, we're catching them. I'm like, you've caught maybe a third of them. And there's more being born every few days or month or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was just going to tie it into how I started to learn about 764 in my life was after I found out about my daughter's self-harm and we went on a road trip. She didn't tell me much about it. She just said overwhelming feelings and all that kind of stuff and didn't really know why she did it. But she didn't explain anything about social media or anything like that. It wasn't in my brain yet. But when I came home, I said to my ex, I said, I don't want to be where I'm at right now while this crisis is happening. I'm going to move back home temporarily. We'll find a place closer to home because I want to be around. Perfectly reasonable. So we agreed to that. I moved back into the house for a bit. My wife was working. I was home with my daughter most of the time. One evening while I was watching TV, I got a text from my daughter and she was in our bathroom saying, Dad, I've relapsed. I ran to the bathroom. I opened the door. My daughter had cut her legs all open. And that's the sight that I have in my brain for the rest of my life. I have first aid training. So that just popped into my head right away. First aid, this is what I'm doing. And I noticed the tub was full of water. So in hindsight, I don't know what she was planning. But I picked her up because I couldn't tell what was bleeding. There was so many cuts and which ones were still bleeding. I just picked her up. I said, I'm going to put you in the water. This might hurt a bit. Put her in the water. It washed away the blood. I didn't see anything new blood showing up. I was able to see that these were all just kind of surface cuts. And I hugged her and I kind of picked her up again, and I brought her I grabbed the first aid kit and brought her out and just tended to her wounds. And her mom came home. We discussed it for a bit. Her mom's a nurse, and excuse me. We decided to keep her home because there was nothing life-threatening happening. There were superficial cuts, and we decided that we were going to look into it the next day with therapists and psychologists and make a few phone calls. The next day, though, my daughter said that when I came into the room, quite dramatically said, I'm part of a self-harm group, Dad, but I'm not part of him anymore. I've blocked him. I'm not talking to him. excuse me, um, zero information. I was like a deer in headlights. I said, sorry, I didn't understand what you said. What do you mean you're not talking to him? Who? I'm not part of that group anymore. I've blocked him and everything. I'm never talking to him again. Don't worry about it. Well, I said, unfortunately, I'm your dad, and it's my job to worry about this, and I'm worried. Sorry, my phone's just kind of dying here.
Are you running out of juice?
Yeah, I thought I had it plugged in, but I didn't, and I'm just plugging it in right now. Okay, so there we go. But
real-time tech support. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and this is the next day.
Yes. The next day, she tells me about that she's in a self-harm group. And
so the day after your daughter was cutting her legs is when she came to you and sort of announced that she's part of a self-harm group?
yes. So during that time, what I realized too was I was the only one that she was telling about that. She wasn't even telling her mom. And so we had a psychologist already for her. She was in therapy, so we talked to the psychologist about it. Her mom, as a nurse, was checking around the hospital about these things and that kind of questions. For me, though, a lot was going on where I just was kind of panicking involved in my daughter's life. And that night, here's the interesting part too, was that night I couldn't be apart from her, and she has a trundle bed. So I pulled it out and I slept in the room with her. She was really annoyed with that. And she had her phone with her, and I was like, can you give me the phone, please? And at the time, I didn't connect the dots. And now I realized that she had done a cutting episode and sent out video and was wanting to get credit for what she had done.
Oh.
And
so her cutting her legs was a thing that she had actually shared with others.
I believe so. I have no proof of that. And the reason being is that this is the frustration that I'm having with law enforcement is I asked for freedom of information because they extracted the information off her phone, and they told me, well, you can't read it without cop computers. And I was like, cop computers? It doesn't sound like this is your IT. I said, I do have a forensics team that could probably read it. I just want to use the freedom of information to find out what you know. But and they have her phone right now, her second phone, and they can't get into it. And anyways, that's a long story short. But at the time, so that night I stayed in her room, and I knew she was annoyed by it, and I just wanted to talk to her. I said, I'm super scared, babe. I didn't like you. I just walked in and my daughter's cut her legs open, and I can't leave your side right now. I'm freaked out. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I said, this is not a punishment, but if anything, I just want to be here if you want to talk or anything. So anyways, things kind of spiraled in that area because what was happening with her mom and I, and looking for a sublet and looking to rent, and my daughter got kind of caught in the middle of it. She had a psychologist. I was fighting with her mom about what we should do. Her mom thought we were doing the right thing. And then a day came up where I had to go to work and leave her home alone. And we prepared for it and said, you can text us and we're here and whatever, and mom's not far away. I'm going to be about a half hour away. So the next morning I got up and I went to work, and at 10 o'clock in the morning I got a call from the Vancouver Police Department to say that she had tried to attempt suicide. She had attempted suicide. So that was the day, though, that I started to see the evidence of what she was involved in. Because when I went to the hospital and she was in the emergency room, her mom was there because she works a building away, so she got there. I got there. Once things were stable, I said, I'll go back to the house and I'll clean up the situation there, whatever that is. The bathroom was where she did that. There were pills, throw up, but there was also some cutting. But there was also a sign on the wall about 2 feet off the ground. On a piece of paper, she had written the word culprit. And this is where it's connecting. I'm like realizing I think she has that written on her leg. She has a lot of cuts. It's hard to differentiate. I didn't realize there's a word in there, and there was so much going on, you don't know what's priority. But now my brain was like, okay, this is super suspicious. So I took a picture of the room, cleaned everything up, went into her room, got some clothes, and went back to the emergency room. And I looked at my daughter and I said, can you give me your phone, please? And can you unlock it? She unlocked her phone. I took all the locks off of her phone. And then I just spent the next hour scrolling through her phone. She had open messaging with Culprit. That is some of the most horrible shit that I've ever seen in my life. She was bragging about finding him again on Twitter, on X. So they'd had a relationship where she pulled away and then found him again, which was, I think, the time where she said, I've blocked him, I'm not talking to him anymore. But then she found him again on Twitter and was talking to him again. And his conversation with her was just anger and frustration. I don't know why my phone is saying low power when I've got it plugged in now. Sorry.
It's all right, man. No worries.
I don't know what's going on. The charger's there, but it keeps saying low power mode. Anyways, and I hope I don't lose you again. Give me a second.
Still even with
it's showing charge. Okay, never mind. I don't know. It said low power mode, but it's charging.
Oh, it's showing.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Hopefully it keeps up. I know I used to have a charger where like the phone would use more juice than the charger could give or something. I wonder if it, but see how we go. If it drops off, we can always kind of pick up later too.
No worries. So she, so that was the first time where I started looking for her phone and I saw the messaging between her and Culprit, where she shares a picture of like her chest, and then he sends it back with 764 written on it. And within 10 minutes, my daughter had carved that into her chest and was apologizing to him that it wasn't bleeding enough. And I started nudging my wife because we were sitting beside each other, and I was like, look at this. And understandably, in that moment, she couldn't look at it. My daughter was on the bed, and for me, I didn't think anything of it either, too, is that's the focus for her right now, is focus for me. But I was like, okay, I'm going to look into this. I opened up other things on her phone. There was images. I started just screen recording off of her phone and sending it to my phone. Just her, all this stuff, because I didn't know what was what, and I just wanted to look at this later. So I just started screen recording and scrolling through it. Once my wife and I got into a routine of she would stay with her, I would stay with her, she would stay with her while she was in the hospital for a few days in the emergency room under physical care and being assessed for mental at that point. I came back to the house and I went into her room and I opened up her laptop. Tabs were open. Her mom's email was all open, so she was reading her mom's emails. There was a discussion group on Discord that she was in, like a self-harm discussion group, which I started scrolling through. And a part of me, naive, thought this would be kids helping each other out and being supportive, but it was giving each other tips on how to cut yourself this way. This is what you want to do. Oh, your dad sounds like an asshole. This is what you need to do. And I just saw all this information of hundreds over the years, thousands of kids just exchanging information all over the world about cutting themselves and what to do and ideas. And so I screen recorded some of that too. And also when the pictures are all blurred and when you click on them, they're just awful pictures of kids sharing how they're cutting each other. And some of these my kid included, were carved up to bits. And that's why I say that social media is eating our children alive, quite literally, like carving them up.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So that became my focus for a bit. And so anytime I was back at the hospital talking to doctors, and I finally had a doctor with my wife and I there, she said to me, what do you think's going on, Jason? And I said, as far as the only thing that's not being talked about is she's saying that she's part of a self-harm cult. I'm finding disturbing messaging in her phone. And then that's when my wife tapped me and said, I know what this is about. I tried to kill myself when I was 15. And I was torn. My phone says it's reconnecting. I don't know if I've got you.
Oh, I can see you and hear you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Seems
I
all
was
right.
torn in that situation just because of my wife feeling like this was something that she knew about or about her. I was torn because also I was being dismissed while I was giving my opinion. So I went for a walk. I came back. And the conversation went to something else at that point. Then we're getting closer to the time. Now, there's a series of events that happened while my daughter was in the hospital that, in hindsight, I realized this was part of her grooming because she was acting certain ways. She was acting like she was hallucinating when the nurse said, I haven't given him any drugs to hallucinate. I said, okay, well, I'm not going to panic because her heart rate's down, so I don't want a bunch of doctors coming in here because her heart rate goes up every time. And I think that's worse than just kind of
Oh, yeah.
let's observe this. But I realized later,
Yeah.
as I was that site that I looked on, I wish I took a snapshot of it, but I saw a literal self-harm bucket list that these kids were filling. So it was things like, have you cut yourself this way? Have you cut yourself that way? Have you ridden in an ambulance? Have you gone to the emergency room? How long have you stayed in the emergency room? Have you gone to a psychiatric ward? Have you stayed in a psychiatric ward for a week? Have you been prescribed these drugs? Have you gotten this diagnosis? So understanding that now later, I realized my daughter was kind of working off of the script to get diagnosed certain ways so that she would get certain prescription pills. And she was making sure that she went into the psychiatric ward. She didn't want to be released from the emergency room all healthy. So, and I was alone on this with my suspicions about this because the doctors and nurses in there are going, what are you talking about? And this is the hammer that I'm going to drop on you here too, because I lose some people on this situation, but this is how deep it goes. Is when she went into the psychiatric ward, she went there on a Friday night. I wheeled her in there, talked to her. I sat on the bed with her, and I said, how are you feeling? And she just looked at me and said, I want to blow my brains out. And that's the last thing my daughter said to me in the same room, face to face. Because the next day, my wife and I went in for an assessment from a psychiatrist of our daughter. And in that, he revealed to us that our daughter had been sexually assaulted by a 16-year-old when she was 13, which in my brain, I didn't know about. I started crying. I started connecting the dots of, oh, that's when she first started taking antidepressants. Anyways, we continue the conversation, talk about our medical history and stuff like that, and family history. My ex-wife's family history we don't know because she was adopted at 6 months old from Korea, so we didn't really know much there. But she had tried to commit suicide when she was young, so that was part of it. But my family history was interesting to them, as there's some prominent doctors that have researched my family for correlations in autism, schizophrenia, and the correlations with incest and alcoholism, because my family is from Prince Edward Island. So a lot of families on Prince Edward Island were researched as a control group. Anyways, that's personal information.
Oh, interesting.
Well, this is it. My daughter had definitely mental illness was in the possibilities here, and we were looking into. And the doctor, though, when he left, he said, nice show of emotion, and he walked out of the room. He said it to me. And when I went home later that day, that's when I put a plea
to you. He was
he looked at me and said,
reflecting on your show of emotion.
Yes, and it really threw me. He was French, and I was like, is he being sincere? Is this weird bedside manner? What the fuck was that about? And then we left, and my wife went there, and I ended up going home. And that's when I put out my plea on my TikTok, because I had a small audience because I was following my daughter's stuff. And while I was on there during the pandemic, there's some interesting characters on here. And I put a plea out saying, I don't know anything about self-harm cults. I think my daughter's involved with one. Does anybody out there know anything about anything? And that's when Katie Bradley, the TikTok advocate, reached out to me and said, I can do a small investigation and let you know what I come up with. She did. She played the video for me later that night. It was a 10-minute video that she did that's pinned on my site. And that video went viral the next day on the Sunday. And unfortunately, I learned in Canada we have a thing called children's rights. And that video stepped on my daughter's rights. My ex showed my daughter that video, and that led to a series of motions to have a protection order put on me so that I couldn't talk about my daughter, and I had to move out of the house. What I found out on the protection order is, yeah, it gets insane.
A protection order. I'm struggling with the irony of the words and which words are. What? I don't even know what to say. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Keep going. Wow.
It's insane. And this is the part that when I was served that protection order and I read the affidavit of what my daughter said about me, I thought I was insane. I thought there was another version of me that I didn't know. And I lost myself in that moment. My wife because I was CCing my wife on email telling her what I was doing, and she said, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that video or that investigation. I contacted Katie Bradley. I said, think you have to take that down because that steps on my daughter's privacy rights. Carol Todd reached out to me, the mother of Amanda Todd, said, yeah, you have to take that video down. I did. But I also had to move out of my house, and I had to take everything off the internet that talked about my daughter or my wife in any way, shape, or form. So my world fell apart. My sky fell. I thought I was insane, and I thought I might have been a monster because what my daughter described, that I'd been mentally and physically abusing her whole life. And my wife had to, and I don't have any resentment here because she's seeing her daughter in the situation say these things about me. And then in the meantime, her trauma has been opened up about her suicide attempt. And it was a perfect storm. And I know that you're more on the technology side, but this is the thing that's happening and why I believe there's a lot of parents out there that don't know that their kid committed suicide because they were involved in a larger group that is very good at what they do. And this is where I understand in hindsight that my daughter was groomed into doing what she did because I was investigating and taking her phone away from her, and I was removed from the equation. So anyways, I lawyered up after losing my mind, finding a place to live, getting my bearings back. I contacted lawyers. I said, I have a protection order on me. This is a bunch of bullshit. I don't know what's going on. They said, is there any evidence to say that you've abused your daughter? I said, no, there's no evidence. Do you have evidence to the contrary? Yes, I do. Provided all that. My lawyers were like, great, this will be no problem. We'll take this to court. We'll get this terminated or at least greatly varied depending on what the judge says. My daughter knew that my lawyers contacted and said this is what we're going to do. Because I found out in hindsight, my daughter was reading all my wife's emails. My wife didn't know that. My daughter went online shortly after getting out of the psychiatric ward. Her accounts all lit up again. Her social media accounts lit up again. And she went online and said, if my dad takes me to court, I'm going to kill myself. And so I showed my lawyers this and I said, I'm justified, but this is not going to be effective to what I want. I think I got to drop everything. I got to sit on this. So I wrote to my ex and I said, look, I don't know the situation. This is an insane situation. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to be the focus of the problem here. I'm stepping back because you're a nurse. You got family. We got doctors. We got cops. We got everybody involved. I'm not going to make this about me. I'm going to step back a bit because something's happening that we're out of our depth on. So my daughter ended up putting herself back in hospital after she found out, because I continued investigating what's going on with social media and these groups and so on, while my wife and family and doctors around her cared for my daughter the best way they could. And I told my lawyers, I said, we can't do anything that's going to rock the boat right now because my daughter's a live wire right now. And I don't know, I don't need to go in there and kick in the door and say, if she wants me out of her life, I'm not going to force this and have her cut herself or try and kill herself again. So this is, I only explain this story because this is what I found out in hindsight, speaking to the groomer who's called me, learning about other parents that have gone through similar situations. And it was the mother in Alberta that was the first time that I realized, okay, I'm not insane, because she had a similar situation happen with her daughter, saying that her mom was the problem and had a similar thing done, a protection order, but she was a single mom. So now her daughter's in foster care. And her mom, the fighter that she is, didn't stop. She went to the police. She went to everyone fighting to get her kid back, saying this is a bunch of bullshit. And this is when Maria and I finally talked, because I said, I'm not a perfect dad. I know I've yelled at her and stuff like that. And in the affidavit, that's what it tied on to, is I had slapped her once when she was 7, and never before or never after. And I went to anger management and counseling about that to make sure that that never happened again. But that was in the affidavit, and it crushed me. But then after was all this other stuff of, she said that I used to call her pathetic and worthless. And then this is when Maria chimed in and said, that's what my daughter said too. And then that's when I was like,
oh,
she used to say that I would come home angry and throw her around the room and say that she was pathetic, and I would take her phones away from her. And then my wife only had to say, well, we're separating because we had issues in arguments and fights. And that, which was earlier on in our relationship, but we were in a better place now. But me reading those things definitely destroyed me in that moment. And I almost, it was the biggest time that I considered leaving this planet myself.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't, because even with the information that I'm putting out there on TikTok, I'm subtly talking about what I'm telling you right now, because I'm having a lot more parents show up and going, oh my God, this is, I think, what happened to me. And so we have a lot of parents that are feeling shame and blame for their kid's situation. And then their kid is going to authorities and saying that this is all their parents' fault. And these groups 764 are sitting there going, this went exactly to plan. We've ripped apart this whole family.
It's the playbook.
Yeah. And the authorities aren't going to come after 764 because the kid is saying it's their parents or one of their parents. And that's the story that I realize is important to get out there, because the individuals within our system are trying to do the right thing, but they're not understanding that they're kind of making it worse by not understanding what they're dealing with.
Man, thank you so much for deciding to stay on Earth with us, because this is important, and I just thank you. I'm appreciative of the fact that you made the decision that you did.
Thank you. The tag on all of this, though, I was mad about this, and even my ex understands a little bit more what happened, and because she said, I know this wasn't you. But she blames us. My wife still doesn't understand the social media side of it. I just wanted to wrap that all up, is that the law enforcement in my life, too, that's a whole other story, but they have confirmed a lot of what I said. They're on board now. My work is actually moving towards possibly creating a course that nurses, doctors, and law enforcement and teachers and such first responders might have to take to recognize when they see kids with self-harm that they might be involved in something like this, because the old ways of dealing with it are exacerbating the situation and are sometimes playing into the plan of groups like 764.
Well, I mean, it's as evil as it is, it's also extremely intelligent and clever. And I could see how it would be played out exactly the way it did, where they're like, look, we somehow have understood components of the system to the point where if you pull this lever and pull this lever, the parents get screwed. The cops think the parents are the bad ones. The hospital thinks that, and just turns the whole thing on itself. If there's something that if you could package up like what you think other parents need to know that most don't, like what would be the top, like the most important thing that you think needs to be broadcast out to parents is to like, okay, I'm doing my thing. I've got a couple of kids. I've got a teenager. I've got a, let's just say whatever, a fifth grader. I've got, let's say a kid in junior high, kid in elementary school. I'm trying to keep on top of keeping them safe on the internet. They have, my older kid's got a phone. My younger kid, all of his friends have a phone. What do I need to know as a parent? Like what have you learned through your experiences that you would like to broadcast back to everybody out there that is not aware of what's going on?
I mean, the quick answer for me, and I'm trying to just push one book in particular, The Anxious Generation, out there by Jonathan Haidt. Have a real plan, just like your child's education, what school they're going to go to, blah, 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 or how they're going to drive a car, like when they're going to do that, who's going to teach them, take them to school. Social media, introducing your child into social media should be more than just when are we getting them a phone. It is more impactful than almost anything else you're going to introduce into their lives. And we kind of do it just saying they're 10 years old and their friends have a phone, we're going to get them a phone too. And I think that is such, like when you're having a baby, the book that everybody says, What to Expect When Expected. Like, I think you should be reading up about introducing your child into social media as much as you would read up about having a baby and what that baby means. How much you would learn before you drive a car. You know how it works. You know the fatalities. You know the most dangerous situations, and you know how to drive safely and put your seatbelt on and have airbags on. So yes, social media needs to be treated as the danger that we know that it is, because I think the vast majority of people there, I think parents are tickled with the idea that they know that social media might have some negative impacts on their kid. But I don't think they understand that it's not their kid's going to be bullied a little bit and get upset about a few things and be excluded from things. It's that their life is on the line. And I think when parents understand that, the rest is going to fall into place. They'll educate themselves. So that's why when people say to me, I try not to say too many books. It was the one that covers it all, is that Anxious Generation. Just so clearly educated me, and I wish I'd read it before we got our daughter a smartphone or let her on social media, because now we can make an informed decision based off of facts. And he does have recommendations in there of what you should do. And if he said if there was one thing, you're going to give your kid social media, you don't have a choice in it. Some parents feel that way. Your kid can't have their phone in their room alone.
Yeah.
It, like you and I, when we were kids, we had a landline that hopefully had a long cord on it so we could get away from the family and up the stairs or around the corner. Yeah. There is benefit in that. I like the idea that why is it parents have smartphones and then the kid wants a smartphone, you get them the exact same thing that you have. Yeah. It's like maybe just have a brick phone or a flip phone that is for the family when one of you is away and you need to contact. There's a lot of gray area and bringing them in, but we're living in this place where kids go, I want the same phone that mom has, with the same access to the internet that mom and dad have. And coming from Japan, Japanese culture is very much, they even have an internet that's for kids. They have phones that are for kids.
Oh.
Yeah, like when they go to their provider, their children's account doesn't give them access to other things. The phone that they have doesn't give them access to social media.
Oh, no way.
And there's
That's
not
cool.
a way around it. And it was like, that seems obvious to me. That,
wow.
You know, we're not putting technically a dad can get a kid a Hellcat on his
700 horsepower and whatnot.
But you also know that kid's probably going to kill themselves in it, type of thing. So, and we're handing these super powered smartphones that, that's the point that I say to people too, is they think they're giving their kid access to the world and access to education. But it's like, no, you've got well-funded, resourceful predators that now have access to your child that are way ahead of you. You're not going to be able to catch up to, especially when your kid all of a sudden is in crisis, which is happening to not just once in a while. The numbers of children that are being damaged by social media by itself, and then the predators that are on social media, that number is rising so drastically. And I learned some of the numbers on this in Canada during the pandemic. Through cyber tips in Canada, they said that there was a 300% uptick in their calls of suicidal ideation and extortion and all those kinds of things on children. That number is not going down; it's going up, and they're casting a broader net. They were going for our most vulnerable kids. So, some people would say, as long as my kid has lots of friends and they got siblings and I'm involved in their life, but the example I use is not just social media and that, but it's extortion on it. I think I'll circle around to that. What's the important thing to understand as a parent? And Jonathan Haidt doesn't even really say this in The Anxious Generation, but it's something I'm beginning to understand, is extortion on a child should be treated like attempted murder. And if they do it and they kill themselves, it should be murder. Because a child doesn't have the idea that I will get through this. This will be embarrassing. I'm going to be accountable for the consequences of my choices and decisions. As soon as a child is extorted, that's another world, and that's attempted murder, because that person is, even if the kid gets out alive, they are horribly damaged after that situation. And
that makes sense.
So that's, I think that there we go. That's the takeaway on that one. If I wanted to talk to parents and say, extortion on your child is attempted murder on your child. And when you hand a smartphone or let them onto social media, there are predators that are waiting for your child, that are waiting to extort them. And your child is defenseless against them. No matter how much so many parents have said to me, I had to talk with my kid. I told them don't be friends with anybody that they don't know.
Right.
You don't understand what they're up against.
Right. It's much more complex than that, because I think the schemes that fool children into thinking that they're talking to a friend, they're talking to somebody that cares about them. I mean, these are schemes that fool adults all the time too. This stuff is not easy. It's not clear. It's not oh, this is a hard pattern that if you see this happen, it's a predator. And actually the car thing, the analogy of would you give a car without training is oddly and unfortunately very accurate, in that I found a bunch of data from the World Health Organization. I looked up, I've been hearing a lot about all the correlations with smartphones and social media and internet access correlating to depression and anxiety in kids. But I was thinking to myself, well, okay, that's makes a lot of sense, but there's not a lot of good data there, because how is the stuff reported? How is it recorded, etc. So I was like, okay, well, what's the ultimate outcome of the most negative way that picture is painted is with suicide. And so I looked up, the World Health Organization has a death certificate database. and they've been running it since 1951, and you can access it for free on their website. And they have codes for cause of death, and one of the codes is self-inflicted, and then they have sub-codes about the method. And it's certainly the darkest database that I've ever looked through. I've had my share of databases being a computer guy. But long story short, what I found out was that young people aged 10 to 24, on average, pre-social media, it's like mid-2000s, about 1 in 20 deaths was self-inflicted. So of every death that occurred in those age groups, 5% was self-inflicted. Up to 2019, and coincidentally, just pre-COVID, up to 2019, the data was 1 in 5. So it went from 5% to 20% in roughly 10 years, 12 years. From age 10 to 24. And granted, this is US specific. I narrowed it down to the US. And so also the CDC has a similar database, and they both kind of demonstrate, well, what are the most common causes of death per age group? The most common for the same age group, 10 to 24, is automotive accidents. And so as a parent, the number one cause of death for young people is automotive accidents. So if you're going to give them a car and you want to be cautious and aware of the risks, you should consider training, practice, all the things, right? A safe car, good tires, good brakes. Number 2 is suicide. It is now the second leading cause of death amongst young people. And so so the analogy you used is spot on, because if I look at it as a parent, like, okay, what if I can look at the top list, give me the top 5, the top 3, whatever, what am I protecting against? Number 1, automotive accidents. Okay, cool. So if I'm the driver, I need to be safe. The kid needs to be in a good seat with the seat belt. If the kid is driving, they got to know how to drive. Number 2 is suicide. What correlates to suicide? Social media and smartphone adoption. So spot on, man. Like if you're to assess the scenario, if you're to assess the situation, and like, what do I need to help my kid be ready for and prepared for and make it through? This is now the number 2 thing. And so do you hand them the tool? Do you hand them this ultimate tool and like, good luck, you and all your friends that all have these things in your backpacks and your pockets, and these are now going to be just dripping dopamine into your brain and having you comparing yourself to everybody else that's perfect, and you're the only one that's not perfect. And good luck, child. And so, yeah, it's unfortunately a very good analogy. And I'm really appreciative of Jonathan Haidt for writing and publishing that book and doing as well as he's done. And I guess apparently I saw recently he's still like number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list.
It was funny. A friend of mine, he was familiar with him when he was going to school and learning about certain things. And when he first started talking about social media, Jonathan, he was considered grumpy and overreacting to social media.
Yeah.
But now everybody's going, oh, shit, you were right. We need to listen more. And it's unfortunate that happened that way. Yeah. But then, like I said, we talk about police and doctors and everything being reactionary. Most of our institutions are reactionary, but we are as humans too. Like I said, we just kind of put something out there, we get excited, and then we're like, oh shit, this is bad, or we got to stop this. And instead of cutting it off and starting over, we just go, we create an economy out of these things instead of solving the problem.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating for me. And that's kind of coming back to the car analogy. Was somebody was talking to me about that, and I said, yeah, cars showed up in our society. Car manufacturers just putting them out there, and we were like, look, these are great. And then, some kids got killed, probably run over, inside, outside of the car. And we went,
Yeah.
oh, this is going to stop. And as a society, I don't think we argued and had billionaires going, no, 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 we're going to keep doing this. I think but now we have a situation where with social media that it's kind of abstract. Like, we can't see the bad guy. We can't see the problem. And it's hard to understand. And it took me 2 years to wrap my head around it, and I've been directly affected in the worst way possible. So I see it when I'm bringing it up to parents. I have to do this a certain way to be effective. I can't hit them with everything I've got. I have to use an analogy of, like, we send our kids to driving school, we get them insurance, the car companies are required to make the car as safe as possible. As a society, we put the infrastructure in of crosswalks and stop signs and all this stuff, and it comes out of our taxes. We've all agreed that we want cars because there's a lot of fun there. We go to vacation and whatever. But it's also the top fucking killer on our planet. And we balance that. Now it's killing kids and it's killing adults, but we want it. So and it's still, you say, it's in the top 3 of fatalities to human beings in general, not just kids. And then social media, that's where this is the frustrating part. I said too, is that, like, a social media platform, I attribute it to, like, a billionaire built an arena in your neighborhood. And we're all going and we're having fun. We're having bread and entertainment and all that, and we're being placated. And we all love it. We go to the football game. But if in the dark basement there were people in there that were harming and killing our kids, we would shut that stadium down.
Yeah, we'd burn it down.
Media, it would be over.
Yeah.
But with social media platforms, we don't see them that way. We don't. This is what these social media platforms are saying. We're not responsible for those third parties in the basement that rented a room off us.
Yeah.
You kind of are. You created the space where they're more effective and can gather. And this is the thing that's frustrating. Mark Zuckerberg I saw a video just recently of Mark Zuckerberg was cornered into apologizing to a bunch of parents behind him.
When he was speaking at there was like a congressional hearing or a Senate hearing or one of those type of deals. Yeah.
Yeah. But the takeaway on that, like, I appreciate that politician cornered him into apologizing to the parents. But the takeaway I got on that, Mark Zuckerberg and everybody that works on those platforms is very aware of how damaging their platform is to teenage girls.
Oh, yes. Explicitly aware. I think there's been some of his co-founders have come out and said that, like, they've talked about it in their planning meetings. Yeah.
So we as a society, the ants against the grasshoppers, I think of Bugs Life.
Yeah.
we're this idea of worshiping wealth and celebrity has created this problem where we're not holding them accountable for the damage that they're doing to our society, and we're just having to roll with it and accept it. And I don't want to do that, and I don't want to put a Band-Aid on this problem. I want to eliminate the problem, and I think I see what the problem is. But as a society, especially a capitalist society, we tend to capitalize on all our issues and problems, and it creates an economy. That's what I said to my ex about this, and even our separation. You do know that almost everybody in the room makes more money than us because of our situation. And they're going to bleed us of money if we get into a petty fight about whether I get this piece of furniture, you get this piece of furniture.
Oh, yeah.
Judges and everybody involved are making more money. So that's my frustration in this, is that's the source of the problem, is that we're living in this capitalist society where billionaires can do whatever the hell they want, and we gotta accept whatever breadcrumbs they throw out.
Well, and it's an interesting, I think a lot too about the human nature in that, where there's this, it almost seems to me like there's this, as crazy as it might sound, like a natural outcome of sorts of, we will eventually develop technology. We'll eventually have developed the ability to spread it at scale. Therefore, we'll develop digital marketing. which makes everything free. And then once that happens, then like everything's downhill from there. Like the because in order to deliver it for free, they have to maximize the emotional and mental impact during the development of the system. And then those impacts lead us to exactly where we are right now. And I think that, so I've been in the business of assessing risk from like a security perspective for a long time, maybe like 20 years. When I used to work with the US government and some of its intelligence agencies doing just that, like assessing risk and figuring out like where do we need to focus our protective defensive resources. And when it comes to individuals, I've never had very good success at sharing a risk and having somebody take it on as like, okay, I'm going to make trade-offs in my life in order to address the risk that is objectively true. And so there's something about us as people where we're already so overwhelmed, especially as parents. Like I totally have sympathy for the whole thing, because it's like, there's already enough going on. And then all of a sudden now there's this whole new category that now to be a parent, there's a whole new category. And the category is so technical and so complicated that most people don't even have no ability, lack the experience to even digest what it means. So yeah, like you said, like when Jonathan Haidt was doing his thing and people were thinking, oh, he's extreme and he's all this stuff. And then all of a sudden now he's a New York Times bestseller and everybody's kind of, oh, what it tells me is like, I think of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, where the classic, like, okay, in order to address the problem, I first need to admit that it's a problem. And so, yeah, so I think that I'm going to open up a thing on my phone here and show you where the problem is. For each of us, I'm going to go into the screen time screen here. The problem, I'm going to hold this by my face so it's less blurry. The problem is measured on the device right there. So my problem looks like a 2 hour and 12-minute daily average of screen time. And that's just on my phone. That doesn't include my computer. And in fact, if I dig deeper and I go back to last week, I don't know where the button is here. So in any case, I can, the thing that is addicting me and that is messing with my head will also tell me how much it's messing with me. And so I think like for parents, I keep coming back to this, that like, we have to admit that it's a problem for ourselves first before we can even dream of helping our kids address the same problem. Now, the predator side is not the same problem, but the addiction side is. Like the addiction to algorithms and all this stuff, which is a big influence in those suicide statistics. And so I think it starts a lot with us as parents of like, do each of us as individuals agree that there's a problem? Some yes, some no. Okay, for those of us, then that's fine. Everybody's can do their own thing. And then for those that say yes, okay, well, what does the problem look like? Where does it lie? And so you open up your little screen time app on your phone and you start looking, and that's where it is. It'll show you in order where the problem is. Because at the top of the list will be like Instagram or TikTok, right? And so there's something there. There's something with trying to grasp, like, there's a high friction, undesirable problem that everybody would rather not be a thing. But we have to start with ourselves as the adults if we're to lead our kids and be like, oh, yes, there is a problem. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. That's at least part of it. I don't know. Do you relate to that? Do you think that that's a thing? Like, do you take a different approach?
I agree with everything that you were saying. But again, it feels like the responsibility for that problem is put onto us as parents.
Yes. Yep.
And so it is good for us, our parents, to understand the dangers and the risks and so on. But like you said too, is that as a parent, we're already overwhelmed. I'm in Vancouver. It's generally 2-income families to exist in Vancouver. So
yeah. Yeah.
And then we've taken apart the village, and instead we have to buy the village back, is a term that I like, is to have a caregiver, to have somebody clean your home, and da 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 da. In the village, we used to do that for each other for free. It was part of contributing to the community.
Yeah.
And now we're buying the village back. We're individuals, and we're separate, and we're all taxable units of profit. And I think where I was going with that, though, is my point that was bubbling up while you were saying that. It's kind of like the recycling program. The recycling program, we got to recycle. Well, the recycling program was designed by Big Oil so that they put the responsibility on us to recycle. You got to save the planet. Put that bottle in the blue bin that we made for you, so that we feel like it's up to us. Saving the planet is on us. Saving our kids is on us.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, there's zero accountability for the person that created the problem, or the corporation, or the billionaire. Yeah. And so I want to, my sights are much higher. It's not even on just the guy that groomed my kid. This is a huge societal problem. We're at a kind of a boiling point or a breaking point. Are we capitalist? Are we techno-feudalism? Like, all these arguments all have to do with each other. What we're seeing in politics, what we're seeing that happen to my kid, what we're seeing, and I think this is it, is that all the Band-Aids that we've put on all these issues and created economies out, they're coming to a boil. We're realizing they have put the responsibility on the public, that they have been raping and pillaging and saying, this is your problem. It doesn't matter when we roll back to the side that, like you were saying, those dopamine rushes and stuff, these platforms are using well-known addiction tactics that work on adults that are in casinos and all those kinds of things, on children who are defenseless to it if they can get at them.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Kind of boiling back to even where you say with your phone, where you can see for yourself the analytics and make decisions and go, I'm on my phone too much. I'm on this thing so much. But that phone is, you think that data is there for you, but it's not. That data is going somewhere else.
That's true.
Hooked.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it's for us, because that puts the responsibility on. Look at how much time you're spending on here. Meanwhile, all the information that you do is going to a company that is spending billions of dollars figuring out how to make those times longer and stronger. Right. And we are sitting here blaming ourselves for our addiction and our problems. Meanwhile, we're up against all the experts in the world that make more money than all of us, and in turn, blaming ourselves for that problem.
Well, it's a good point, man. I mean, and you know, I agree that there's like multiple tiers of the problem. There's like multiple, like.
Listen, I go to the problem. Everything after that are symptoms of that problem.
Yeah,
and as long
absolutely.
As we don't tackle that problem, all these symptoms will always exist. We might make it a little bit better, and we'll all pat ourselves on the back as law enforcement doctors that, we've made cancer happen less, or we've made car accidents less, or we've made the fact that our kids are dying because they're using social media less. And we go, look at these heroes that have done this. But meanwhile, it is the ruling classes and the billionaires that are like, we're manufacturing this problem. And we've created an economy out of it that we can profit and tax off. So that's my understanding of it when people are talking about this, is that as soon as we get into blaming ourselves for a problem that was created to be a problem to us, in a sense, I don't know what the malice behind it, but when Zuckerberg understands, and when they race to their platforms to see how liable they are for a kid's death, I see where the problem is.
Yeah.
It's not the parents of that child that created that situation, as much as they're going to be responsible for it. And this is my low push, is there's a lot of parents out there feeling blame for the situation their kid's in. But we're up against companies that are creating relationships with our children that we get no say in. Whether we give them a phone or not.
I really, yes. And that is such an interesting thing, that this is a situation in which like the blame and the responsibility are separate. Like the blame is on the actual parties that are responsible for creating the capability. And yet the responsibility is on the parents and the children. And that those parties are otherwise unrelated, but yet it's like splits the situation. And so we're stuck. So we're handed this bag. It's full of shit. And it's like, here you go. You can hold this now. And sometimes I think that in the biggest problems can be also the biggest opportunities, in that if books like The Anxious Generation, if conversations like the one we're having now, and all the other conversations that other people are having in a similar vein, if these things can be used to help more people become aware that, you know what, if I delete those addictive mechanisms from my phone, or I'll say a couple things. If I delete those things from my phone, I will experience no downsides. Maybe a little bit here or there. The football practice thing, I might miss the notification on Facebook of football practice, but like, I'm not actually missing anything. If I stop watching the news, no negative consequences. It's all actually positive. If I to take a simple thing of I normally I go into the store and I bring my phone. What if I don't? What if I go into the store and I leave my phone in the car? What if when I get home from the store, I also leave my phone in the car or in the drawer? These are the things that I think are not yet fully being digested in our broad, populace, but it's there for us to, like, we're holding the bag of shit. If we let go of the bag, no downsides. It turns out that the people that handed us the bag, they don't even know that we've let it go because we stopped sending them the signals back because we're not using their stuff anymore. And that, well, we dropped that bag ages ago. So like that's there for us, but it's super hard because we don't have tribes. We have artificial, we stand on artificial ground. We look at artificial light. We have artificial relationships through our screens. We have artificial tribes through our screens. These are not things that we want to let go, because the reason we have the artificial tribes is because maybe we don't have a real one. And so you can't just drop the bag, because that bag full of shit, the label on the bag says these are your friends. These are your relationships. Yeah. And so it's so truly, truly difficult. So I definitely sympathize, while saying that, like, oh, it's on us as the parents. Like, we have to do the thing. We have to look at our own addictive tendencies, and we got to let the screen time. It's like all these things exist at the same time, where psychological manipulation is a well understood concept. And we know this because we're watching it all the time. If you look at anything through a screen, the chances that you're being manipulated by what you saw on the screen are high. And so for me, I've gained a lot of value in dropping the bag. I let go of that bag. I don't use social media. I use it for work. So I'll post for work for Family IT Guy, and I'll comment, but I don't use the app. I don't like scroll. I do the thing for work and then I close it. And that's a big deal. That's a big change, like, for people to consider, But I think what you said, the first thing you said is the best, because it's the most digestible. No phones in the bedrooms at night. That is like bite-sized, not scary, not difficult. Like, oh yeah, I can take that in. Okay, if I make that one change, like somebody told me, all the worst things that occur with kids on their phones is from midnight onwards.
We don't let kids in nightclubs.
Right.
People are like, what about age restrictions? It's like, yeah, we have them for kids for a lot of things.
We do.
And then people are like, how are you going to enforce that? How did we do it with nightclubs? You figure it out. And you put them up. We're in a capitalist system. Put Meta up against whatever TikTok, and see who comes up with a better age restriction that works well and
Yeah,
mitigates
that's right.
these problems.
That's
But
right.
they're not going to do it until it becomes expensive for them to not do it. Till,
Exactly. And I think that's what's happening. I think it's
yeah.
becoming expensive for Roblox, which is why their CEO made a very reactionary video last week about this whole thing with this kid Schlepp that's like a vigilante on Roblox. And they put out a crisis PR video that was obviously just crisis PR. It wasn't them actually trying to solve any problems. And they're just making it worse for themselves. And it's really cool because the market is speaking to an extent. They're speaking enough to where, like, Roblox is the most popular game on the internet. They generate a large amount of there. I don't know how many billions, I forgot, but they do many billions a year in revenue. Very successful. So this is great, man. Like, there's an element of this that's like the voices are being heard, and the voices, I think, where they're probably being heard is, I bet you Roblox is seeing their user counts for children perhaps going down.
Yeah, I mean, just myself, I know many parents that have removed Roblox recently through my videos, yours, and so on.
Yeah.
Because I think there is something, no matter who you are and where you are in our your worldview in our society, truth has a way of resonating. And when you when soon as you just start talking about the truth about roadblocks, and this is what we're seeing all over social media now, is like I'm seeing a lot of videos of people coming up behind guys our age playing Roblox. And it's like, why are you playing Roblox? It's a children's environment. It's supposed to be. But now it's getting pulled out. Like, you can't avoid the fact that Roblox is a cesspool, that you would not let your kids go to that neighborhood. You wouldn't let, if you, like, I live in Vancouver, and it was like, no parents are dropping their kids off in the downtown east side, which is one of the highest overdoses in North America and all that stuff. Whoa. Because you can see it, and you can see how bad it is.
Yeah.
But as long as we can't see how bad Roblox is, we're going to keep dropping our kids off in that neighborhood. But we show the neighborhood for what it is, the platform for what it is. We need to expose these things, because it was like a thing is like intellect, critical thinking, academic, like educated people can understand something intellectually. But I think for the vast majority of us, exposure, you need to see it. You need to see how bad it is.
Yeah, over and over.
Yeah, it's like that Dave Chappelle joke about, we either got to figure out racism or we're going to fuck our way out of it till we're not sure who is anybody anymore.
He's the best. Chappelle is a genius, man. Yeah.
But I loved it. It's that idea, is that exposure, when you can't teach people and you can't make them understand, you have to expose them to it. So this is part of my thing, is that I'm not really pulling punches. As soon as somebody says, how you doing? I say, you really want to know? So I'm going to talk for a bit, and I'm going to tell you some shit that's going to scare the crap out of you.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily put it that way, but I recognize there's certain friends where they're watching and listening to me, and I can see their eyes getting bigger, and I have to check in with them. You doing all right?
Yeah.
There's more. This is the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
And some people have had to take a break from talking about it, and then they come to me a week later, and they're like, I can't believe everything that, like, you plant seeds.
Yeah.
People don't know what they're looking at. And then when I tell them my story, they see it.
Yeah.
And so I'm realizing I don't have to hit everybody over the head and beat them with everything I know. I just have to plant the seeds. And the seeds are those things that tickle, like you're saying. Most parents would go, yeah, my kid probably shouldn't have their phone in the room alone.
Yeah.
Whether they know anything at all. That's probably good. That's probably good parenting.
It's so, and it's something that I've heard from a lot of smart people that are in the space of like studying and being involved with this topic of like kids being safe on the internet. One of the most common threads is exactly, yes, no phones in private areas of the house, especially at night, if at all. If you're going to use your phone, use it in the living room. There's hours. After those hours, you charge it in the living room. You don't charge it in your room. If you need an alarm clock, speaking of Japan, Seiko makes like $12 alarm clocks that are made in Japan, that are analog, that don't have Wi-Fi. They'll wake you up in the morning. They'll do the job. You know,
We've been figuring it out for a long time how to get up and
Yeah.
like that.
well, and so cheers to using the system against itself, because I think that's what we're doing. And if the algorithm is going to spread engagement, which is what it does, then let's drive engagement around awareness and education on these topics. And I know for a fact that you have already helped more than one family, and that I have already helped more than one family. And that right there is the most fantastic measure of success I could ever imagine.
Mhm.
And so if you're handed the bag of shit, we'll help you cut a hole in the bottom or just drop it. It's like,
I'm going to say Henry Rollins I used to listen to. He was part of Black
oh,
Flag.
he's good. Yeah.
Well, he did spoken word albums, and when I was a teenager, he goes, if a person has a bag of shit or a handful of shit, and they say take it, you don't have to take it. When you were saying that, I was just thinking of him when he was saying that. But it's exactly
That's
it.
wonderful.
Oh, we are taking the shit, and we're holding it, and now we're responsible for it, even though they keep piling more of it on, and we're like, and trying to save our kids and trying to make sure we save our homes and keep our job and make everybody happy and blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, hey, there's another thing you need to educate yourself on. It's extremely complex. And we've built everything so that you're not going to understand it.
Yeah.
And it's extremely addictive. And we're going after your kids. Good luck.
Best of luck to you.
I'm like, as much as I want to spread awareness to parents about that kind of stuff, it is there.
Yeah.
And planting the seeds gets them to looking into it, especially when they start to see the signs at home. And that's what I'll say with parents is that if you see that your kid is obviously spending less time with you, they got their phone in their room, check the analytics on it. They're probably on that phone all night, which is a dangerous time. You wouldn't drop your kid off in a nightclub all night and then just say, make sure you make it to school tomorrow.
Yeah. Here's an open credit card. There's the drug dealer. There's the bar. Good luck, man. Don't get in trouble.
My daughter had access to all of her mom's passwords. She was going into her emails and everything like that. So she was also being coached on what to do and find out information. She was making accounts under my email address, under her mom's email address. It's harder to find your kids' accounts when you're not looking into your own. She would just unsubscribe to newsletters and stuff. So what's happening in these chat rooms with kids is just an exchange of information on top of the fact that we've got the platforms that are saying we're not responsible for the third parties that are teaching your kids to get away with this stuff that'll ultimately end in their demise. And they're still sitting here going, well, you should have learned about this. And it's like, I have to learn about every weapon that comes out
in detail. That would take years of study to even try to comprehend.
Yeah.
It's
been 2 years since I first knew about this and my daughter being in it. And I know that I couldn't understand everything. And that's why I'm talking to guys like you and I'm reading the Ancient Tradition. And when people ask me, what do I learn about it? I'm probably not going to be able to teach you. I'm too emotionally attached. I can talk about the emotions and the feelings as a parent and empathize with people. I'm just like, go read this book. That'll get you started. Yeah. Go from there. Everything in that book is just true.
Yeah. And man, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And it's sorry, I just get a little bit like, I'm noticing too is that almost anybody that'll hear me, I realize my brain is like, make sure you get it all out of there. Everything you understand, because I wish, like even with my TikToks, I noticed that the only reason that they're getting shared is because other parents are forcing them and sharing them and whatever. Yeah. It's not getting promoted because I use language in there that dampens it down or what I'm talking about. And I did a live. I'm not able to do lives right now. So I did a live on the weekend. And I like the lives because I can talk one-on-one with people. Parents show up. Situations. But unfortunately, because I think in the comments somebody said they just lost their husband, I got flagged and then cut out, and I can't do lives until August now.
Whoa. Until August?
September.
Oh, right. Whoa. Yeah. Wow.
So this is what I'm saying is even on the social media platforms, we're shackling each other. We're going after each other about how we're talking about it, but protecting the predators. And it's like, I understand that when they hear the word 764 or something of that nature, it probably puts a flag up in that. So we're having to learn how to get around these parameters to talk about what's actually happening. I mean, well, the predators are thriving. And it's this, that's what I went through in my family, just on the ground, is that's what they want, is that it's a faceless predator that's hard to understand. So we're all pointing at each other type of thing, like, you've got some blame here, you've got some blame here, you've got some blame here, but that's what they want to happen. And so that's why I pulled out of that whole situation. I wrote a letter to everybody involved. I said, I get the optics here. I don't want to be the source, like the focus.
Yeah.
So I'm pulling back, but I need assurances that you guys, doctors, cops, are looking into this other thing that she definitely has carved into her chest and definitely has on her leg. And I'm learning about it too. And then it wasn't until that she killed herself that the cops went, yeah, we didn't know what you were talking about when you brought it up. And we've been working on it since your house got swatted. And now that she's dead, now we can do something. And that's the frustrating part, is that I was banging on all the doors of all the authorities and everybody saying, I get it, but we don't do anything until we lose the things that are kind of most dear to us. I don't want people listening to me because they're empathizing with a terrible loss. I want them to understand that Jonathan was saying a long time ago, with no loss, this is a danger, this is a problem, but we don't listen because we like the shiny thing. Like what it does. Yeah.
And like the path of least resistance, and like our brains are tuned to go down that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please.
Sorry. Well, I get upset, and I'm not upset at you or anything like that, but it's like I have my daughter's ashes here on the table. And they're there because of profits and we can't make the people that are running our world, our ruling classes, use any morals. Like, people go, why don't they change it? Why don't they fix things? But the ruling classes are very happy with how things are going.
Right. They don't see it as a problem.
Yeah, the disparity between the rich and poor has arguably never been greater in human history.
Yeah.
Why are we going to start hoping that billionaires are going to, you know what? We don't want kids dying either.
Yeah.
Even though they know what they're doing and how they're contributing to it. So that I get quite upset about that. And I can't let go of that because I don't find a bigger problem behind that. There's a lot of other problems that I want to help mitigate in the meantime: awareness, doctors, cops, lawyers, all that kind of stuff, judges. But the source of it is people in charge don't have a conscience. They don't have a moral compass. They're only about themselves and making as much money as possible. And that is leading to all these voices of evil. I'm not religious, but I went to church shortly after my daughter died with my aunt. And the sermon was just about, it is more necessary in this world to be a voice of good. A voice of good, because we're surrounded by all kinds of evil right now.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to live the rest of my life having devil's advocate arguments and fights about whether we should do this and whether we should do that. And it's like, bare bones, kids are getting literally eaten alive by something that we've created and we're all enjoying, but we seem to be blind to it because the people profiting off of that are going, we're not responsible for third parties. Look how great it is. So yeah, I have a hard time just discussing what if we did this? What if we did that? It's like, what if we just cut all the heads off the billionaires and lop this head beast off at the head and start over again? Because I don't think they're contributing to our society. And if everything came down, guess what? Those of us with skills and uses and able to be in a community will survive. But this whole economy is based off of parasites that are profiting off of the useful people in our society. That's a little bit, sorry,
No,
that's
I mean, yeah,
really where I'm at. And that's
yeah.
why the horrors we're going to see are only going to get greater until we hold the people responsible that are creating these horrors.
I grapple more and more every day with, ever since, so I started doing this family IT guy thing in the beginning of 2024. So I've been at it for a year and a half. With every day that goes by, I grapple with the discoveries that I make that indicate that there is more evil than I thought there was the day before.
Mm.
And like the percentage of people or whatever it is out there, I don't know if the percentage is changing or simply that just there's so many people that even the smallest percentages can have huge numbers, that there's just so much evil, that there are people that do not default value human life or default value children.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, like my entire composition of my insides doesn't understand that that's part of the same species that I am. But it is. And I don't even know, like, talking about religion and stuff, it just, I start thinking about I don't know what else to think of other than just, there's all these religious, stories and correlations and things of, like you were saying, good versus evil. And if you chop all the heads off of the evil, it just probably grows right back, like
two heads grow back.
Yeah. And I certainly have not come any closer to figuring out, like, is there an answer at all? What if there is? What is it? And that's why I end up kind of focusing back on, like, all right, well, so we've got these evil monsters. Like somebody told me something a long time ago that was interesting. I met this guy, a couple of people, actually successful CEOs. Some of them had like 9-figure exits, like to the point where, like, oh, I'm good for the rest of my life. I could do whatever I want. I'm good. And what they basically told me was that in order to be effective at that leadership level, where you have perhaps thousands of people that work in your organization, or you have this giant success, that, like, you can't have empathy.
Yeah, you got to be a narcissist.
Like you have to be. So like there's actually organizations that recruit based on whether you're narcissistic or not. Like apparently the CIA is one of them. And like the only way that you can actually grow is by stepping on others and like pushing them out of the way or whatever it might be. And so there's this like natural cycle that in order to achieve great success, like you can't have empathy. And if you do, then you just won't get there.
But the growth you're talking about is financial.
That's right. Purely financial, purely, or actually bigger than financial, perhaps, because finance is like a means to an end. I think it's like, how big is your resource pool? So it'll be like formed in like dollars, assets, people, levers, relationships, whatever it takes to make something move.
Power.
Yeah, power.
Grow my power.
Yeah.
We're putting profits, power over people and places, I guess you could say. And what was it? Kurt Vonnegut said that. He goes, "We're the only civilization that is we're gonna go extinct because it wasn't cost effective to save us."
Yeah.
And it really feels
that's pretty true.
Said that, I think, in the 70s, and it's just, I mean, I put it like, billionaires and the ruling classes have a chance to be heroes.
Yeah.
They have a chance to be heroes, to say, you know what, I got $1 billion. I'm going to keep my $1 billion, but everything after that, back into the economy. I'm going to make sure that there's a standard of living, and that everybody, if you just want to exist, you can exist. But if you got they have a chance to make this heaven on earth. But this is why we know that they don't have a moral compass, and they have the worst addiction, and it's greed, and it's coming at the cost of, I don't know. Like, there is that Buddhist thing too. Life is suffering, and I agree that we have to have some adversity to understand to have the happiness.
Yeah.
Your joy is going to be measured against your suffering, as to a certain degree. I think I'm in for a lot of joy, I think, in my future right now.
Yeah.
But I think that joy will come with making deeper connections and helping those around me.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm measuring, is that I'm not going to be able to take this whole system down. My lawyer, who's a good friend of mine, said too, he goes, you're not going to be able to beat the system or the institutions from the outside. You're going to have to educate the individuals within.
Yeah.
And that will evolve the system the way that you want it to go.
Yeah, man, like bringing positivity one person at a time, so that as each person is able to drop the bag or cut a hole in the bottom of the bag to make it lighter, that they find out that feels good, and it feels the right kind of good, and that it enhances human connection one at a time, which is like the most valuable thing that we could ever have, is individual human connection.
You're nail on the head. It was when I was in Japan with my buddy who just lost his wife. We went out the one night to a bar. I said, let's go just have some beers and talk this shit out. And the owner came over, and I was just talking to my friend about, you don't have to manage other people's feelings right now. You say whatever it is in your heart, your feelings. It is not up to you to make everybody else feel comfortable around you. And the bartender came up and he said, so, how you doing, bud? I said, here's your chance. Tell him. He's like, I just lost my wife. And that's how he said it. And I just had my hand on his back, just supporting him. And the bartender just went, wow, tell me more. And then we ended up becoming friends, and until 3 a.m, the whole bar rallied around us. They heard my story.
Oh my God.
And that's where we're going back to the hotel. He's like, I had fun tonight. I was like, yeah. This is the thing. Like, if you're moving through grief in a healthy way, you can still enjoy the things. The human connection is the one that cuts through everything very quickly. I yelled that one day. I was like, fuck Buddhism. I don't see any joy in the suffering. And I was with a friend that was like, yeah, fuck Buddhism. She was just in the dirt. But that afternoon, it trickled in where I had this amazing chat and connection with an old friend that showed up in an amazing way. And I was moved. I was like, oh, this is like a joy and a connection that I'm feeling again. I was like, hey, fuck you, Buddhists. I was saying a lot of fuck Buddhism that day. I was like, okay, I'm seeing the joy in it. And we make choices to not see the joy in life. And I do see joy in life, as much as I just went on and kind of a bitch about capitalism and billionaires. Is that human connection? This is, you know what, full circle. I think billionaires exist because they don't know that human connection. How they don't have empathy for anybody else, because they haven't had the joy of trust and human connection and unconditional love. And so it goes back into my Christian learning of, you have to love everyone, no matter who they are. And how we defeat this is love. And I even just joked, it was like, if I saw Trump or another billionaire that everybody hates, would I have the capacity to say, see him as another human being that needs love?
Yeah. That's the ultimate test. It's the ultimate test, man.
I can do it with the poor. I can do it with the peers and my colleagues and my friends and my neighbors. But could I do that with a billionaire that arguably is responsible for a lot of the problems that are existing in our society? And I think that's where I want to be at, where I see every human being the same hopes, fears, and dreams that everybody else has.
Yes.
And that the worst of us are usually the most damaged.
That's yes. And I love that from the perspective of parenting.
Yeah.
I love the idea of exposing kids to that concept of I just had a conversation yesterday my kid came to me crying, sitting on my lap. His friends are hurting his feelings and saying things that he didn't like. And so I tell him, like, okay, yes, let's process that. Okay, now that we've processed that, and I'm here for you, and I recognize your feelings. Also, when people come to you and express anger and they put their stuff out to you, that means that there's something inside them that is sad and angry. You know, my sister told me one time that behind anger is always sadness. And it's like, yeah, that really stuck with me. And in the bag that we're holding, this bag of shit that we're holding, is also the thing influencing us to default to anger towards people, and to default to division, and to default into it's not okay to disagree. Yet when we as individuals can demonstrate love by default, and understanding by default, and disagreement is good and healthy, and it's okay to have different opinions, and we can still smile and shake each other's hands and give each other a hug and appreciate each other, even if we like really disagree on something that's core to our being, then that, I think, is how we can spread positivity one person at a time. That's like one of the ways, I think, is just demonstrating that, like, we can flip the script on, we're all told to, we're just so buried in negativity all the time, you know, and all these inbound signals from the outside from people that we've never met are just, there's a lot of positivity too. Like, the internet is full of positive and beautiful things, but then at the same time, like, we're also receiving a lot of negativity and judgment and shame and anger. And I love the idea. I'm grateful for the opportunity to like try to add love and like add understanding. So I appreciate what you said on that, you know, of the objective of like, if we could see people in all their whole spectrum of experience, of like, there's stuff I really don't like about this person, and there's stuff that I really do, and it's all in one person. You know, there's a lot, I don't know, it's something I like about that.
Well, yeah, I think hitting to that is, no matter whether you agree with another person's worldview, perspective, or whatever, dismissing it is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
That you can't dismiss it, because it's the worst. That's the thing that I knew I was sensitive to, is somebody dismissing my experience.
Oh yeah.
Like, even if my experience is valid and it's true, it might not be correct all the time. Like, maybe there's other things to it. I got biases or whatever, shitty belief systems. But this is what social media pushes, conflict, because it gets a lot more views. Yeah, but we remember when we turn that social media off and we're at the table with our family, which is probably a whole bunch of different perspectives on things, whether you're right, left, Christian, atheist, whatever. When you can break bread with another person, and you know that my truth has to exist, your truth has to exist, and understanding that you need to allow for more than one truth, and that the fact that when I can understand your truth, and we're a little bit like in an echo chamber, we're preaching to the choir here. I think we agree on a lot of things and probably have a similar worldview, and some people could think we're brothers, but
yeah.
but a lot of times brothers don't agree. But
yeah.
I think we don't get a true sense of our shared reality if we don't accept understanding other people's truths.
Yeah.
Because we can all witness the same accident, but we all saw different things.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
Well, I see, like, any car insurance company knows this. They can talk to 5 witnesses of the same accident, and they got to extrapolate the certainties to truth in that.
Yeah.
And the things that probably more that person's perspective about what happened there. Like, I had just an interesting aside. There was a car accident that I was involved in, and I remember hearing that the witnesses of that accident all had a similar narrative, that they were surprised by my actions, because I was in my truck and I was making a left-hand turn, and it was a downhill, and the cars were all stopped for me. But a cyclist came through, split the cars, hit the front of my car, did $4,500 damage. I watched his head bounce off my hood.
Oh.
I have first aid. I've done first aid many times. I stop my car. He's on the road in front of my car. I slide down beside him. I hold his hand. I said, "I'm Jason. I just hit you with my truck or whatever." I said, "You just got in an accident with the truck, and I saw you bounce off the hood. I don't want you to move right now, and I just want you to talk to me right now, and I'm going to check you to make sure you're okay." And I did first aid on him. We chatted for a while. He squeezed my hand as an answer and stuff like that.
Damn.
And when I did first aid, I threw his bike into the back of my truck. I got his address to drive it back. Ambulance came and took him. And then there's like 3 witnesses there. One guy sat there and he went, "That was amazing." Like, I just saw 2 people hit. You came out, did first aid, made sure somebody called 911, off to the hospital. And even the ICBC said, "Everybody loved you." But they had different ideas of what happened. Like, one was saying that I cut through the traffic and hit him. Somebody said he came through and hit me. The other guy was like, "I think they hit each other." So the facts of it were funny, that the only certainty was that I acted in a great way.
In a caring way, yeah.
So that was a truth that everybody understood, but what they saw was different. Yeah. Somebody didn't know if I had hit him or if he had hit me, and the other one did. So that was just an interesting one where, like, I did have some pride in. I had no control over that situation, but I had control over how I behaved.
Yes.
And that's what I can be proud of.
Yes.
And that I didn't get out of the truck and go, "You fucking idiot. Does anybody know first?" Like, could have done that.
Right, no, which is probably what happens a lot in those situations.
Yeah. We're all human beings and, have a little empathy for each other. I have been the guy on the bike that got hit by a car before, too. So it's like, nobody ran up and said, "You fucking idiot," but nobody ran up for a while. And then,
Yeah.
And the driver was like, "Why were you at the intersection?" I'm like, "Can we talk about this later?" Like,
we'll talk about the philosophy later. When I'm,
Anyways, I don't know where I was going with that, but it was just, we kind of get immersed. We kind of realize that we're kind of surrounded by shit, a bag of shit.
Yeah.
And we forget that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And as long as we're not stepping on each other's heads and pushing each other deeper into the shit in order to get out, I think we can hold ourselves, our head up a little bit high. I don't want anybody else to be hurt. And that's the problem with this situation is I really, like, people say, "You must be so angry." And I am. I'm very angry. But I don't really ever want to see anybody hurt. And I don't want anybody hurt because I'm dumping my pain onto them.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of us walking around. That's what I'm witnessing now. Like, even a dude that might in the past been threatening to me, where I'm like, "Fuck you." Now I'm seeing, oh, that's somebody in pain.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to manage that pain. And they're throwing it and dumping it on whoever around. So I didn't realize we were going to get like you. We kind of IT guy, but we're getting into kind of more human and philosophical discussions.
Yeah,
which
the good
I
stuff.
think this is the ultimate desire, is that you want to protect what's good in our world. And you know that there's a tool out there that can do a lot of good, but we need to be aware of how much damage it can do. And we need to hold the people responsible that designed it to do that damage, in a sense, responsible for their. But in the meantime, we got to protect each other from this that is happening. And so,
and use it as an opportunity to, even if it's not our fault and we're not at like blame, use it as an opportunity nonetheless to like look inwards and be like, oh, well, maybe there's something I can gain from this. Maybe there's something I can improve. Like, I love the thing, I say this to people from time to time in like random comments on my TikTok videos and stuff, is like, it's never too late for positive change. Even if stuff is terrible right now and it's not the way you want it to be, and if your kids are used to a thing or you're used to a thing and that thing isn't the way that you want it to be, it's never too late for a positive change. And I say that all the while recognizing it makes my heart heavy that sometimes actually it can be too late. And not reflecting on you personally, but just in this your experience where like sometimes you can't fix the thing. But but yet you bring a positivity, Jason, into these conversations where for those that do still have the fortune of like it of where it is not too late to make a positive change, like that it just resonates in my mind, you know. And like I said, there's more than 0 people that you have had that impact on, that I've had that impact on, and like that is above all else like just such a fantastic and beautiful thing, that there is opportunity for positive change, and that when the opportunity is there, it can be taken. But how do you take it? What does it feel like? Even if it's scary, what do you do? You know, and that's what I'm here. Like that's a big part of my mission.
I think the positivity side is the thing that even in your videos, like you're not fear mongering or scaring anybody. You're just kind of more matter of fact. This is in your life, and it's probably going to affect you, and I like that. And you generally have a positive outcome in your videos, where it would be very easy to just come on and go, beware! Don't let your kids on social media, or they're going to die. Like,
right.
People, you got them scared, but they don't know what to do now, and they might do more harm in a sense out of fear.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's. And I realized it's this analogy was, if you want to help your kids, you want to help your friends and your family, your society, you have to put your own gas mask on first before you start yelling at everybody to put their gas masks on.
Yeah, that's right.
Put your own on first, take care of yourself. And that's for me was it, because I've spent a lot of my life being angry, just for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And I accept accountability for, as a dad, that I probably was a little bit more confident in my parenting abilities and my ex's abilities and all that stuff. And that, yeah, there are a few things that if I could do it all over again, I definitely would do certain things. I would learn a little bit more about certain things. I would stand up for certain things a bit differently. But those years of being angry, there was zero progress. And it's only been the past 2 or 3 years that letting go of that anger, letting go of that shit, has made me approachable, palatable. I want to hear what you have to say about things. And I realize it's because I started to understand that when people are upset and angry out there, they're hurt and they don't know what to do with their pain. Whereas at one time I used to go, fuck that guy, I'll beat the shit out of him too because he's being a piece of shit. And I thought I was being admirable by using my powers, my dickhead powers, against a bigger dickhead.
Right.
I'm like, there's no good coming out of that situation. I understand what nobody wins a fight.
Yeah.
And it is, I'm hope to get to a place of where I'm never dumping pain on it to anybody around me. And I can manage my pain and understand it and move through it in a healthy way that only benefits myself and in turn everybody around me. Because when you move through it in a healthy way, you have no choice but to have more empathy for those around you. I wish I learned that earlier in my life. But I'm here now.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy from my past. I'm this guy right now talking to you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, we just got to love the world. I'm not that deluded, but we do have to protect ourselves. We have to recognize when we're in a safe space and be able to be that safe space for somebody that needs it in that moment. And the only way you can't prepare for it and you can't worry about it. You just have to be present in that moment to go, this person needs somebody to listen to them right now. This person needs to know that they're not alone. And so I think even as I'm talking to you, I'm forming a little bit of my advocacy and even how I'm going to do my videos to other parents is like exactly that. That I'm not screaming, danger, there's a cliff, but just to say, hey, we all suspicious of this thing. I'm with you. It's a scary world out there. I don't know what to do either. But in the meantime, here's some parameters for protecting our kids while we figure out what we need to do to make the future right.
Yes. Yes, that's right. Cheers to that, man. If I was in the bar with you in Japan, cheers to that. Yeah, but this is the 2025 on a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, so on that note, okay. We talked about the phones in the bedrooms thing.
Yeah, you had some questions, and I think leading back into a little bit of more what parents and
so like what can we do? And so that, man, really, like, that was a beautiful arc of so we come back to like, okay, so in the meanwhile, what do we need to know? What do we have to do? So we got to, like, let's help our kids by not having this algorithms and predators and bullies and distractions follow them into their room at night. So let's help them by saying, okay, let's not do that. Let's put the tech in the public areas of the home, the common areas of the home, and not in the private areas of the home. And then you mentioned the anxious generation as like a good source of education. And you mentioned being there, what it means to be in the moment for somebody that's processing something so heavy. And like the bartender, where he had the wherewithal and he had the capacity to say, oh, tell me more, instead of, oh shit, I got to get back to the bar.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to do that. And so it actually, like, it covers a lot of what I was thinking, because I just have some notes on my thing here of some of the other questions I had in mind.
Well, if you don't mind, you were saying something there, and it is in that area with, I think parents are feeling scared. And some parents have asked me, because they go, I think there's also the approach that parents are taking with their kids where they go, okay, don't talk to strangers. Don't do this. Don't do that. And then when they're confronted with they see evidence that their child might be involved in these things, where I say, like, they're wearing long sleeves and in their room a lot more. And if you take the phone away, it's a little bit more than a temper tantrum. It's almost withdrawal. They might be involved in something, whether it's extortion or bullying or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I would say to parents, and this is, I think, a huge thing, just as a parent, that I wish I understood better, is the idea of curiosity, meeting your kids at their level. I think so many parents are hoping that their kid will meet them at their level and articulate what they're going through in a way that the parents will understand. And that's kind of insane if you think about it. Remember what it was like to be a kid. You have to meet them on their level, and the way to do it is curiosity. And I don't mean you ask a question. Like, why did you do that? Is not curiosity.
That's not curiosity.
Judgment and assumptions.
Yeah.
And they're like, but I told you not to do that. Why did you do that? That's a lot of the approach of kids, parents to, and then now the kid thinks the social media is going to be taken away from them.
Oh, yeah.
So they don't want to bring up problems with social media. And then they're also going to feel shame for what they got involved in because their parents did say, don't talk to strangers. Well, now I'm talking to a stranger and
I did what I wasn't supposed to do. Yeah.
So this is where I say is, if you can figure out how to be curious about something that you probably actually don't know much about. Because I think that's the thing too, is as parents, we relate it to something that we went through. Heavy metal music and Ozzy Osbourne. That must be what this is. It's not. Our kids, if your kid is involved in something like that, they've probably seen things in the month that they've been involved that you haven't seen in your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that kid is scared, and that kid is going to be sensitive to any type of judgment or assumption about them. And they're also going to be scared that you're going to take their social media away, so that you're going to shame them and you're going to punish them when they tell you, they try to cry for help, when they try to say something.
Yeah.
So it just further exacerbates the situation. And these groomers know that.
Yeah.
And that is part of their main thing, is to make sure that they have their barbs and latch into your kid, and your kid will never tell you about it. And even if they do, they know that you're probably going to make it worse by shaming them, which is going to draw them to the groomer even deeper, because their parents make them feel bad about themselves. And they go back to this group, and the kids are celebrated.
Yeah.
And the groomer knows how to, good job, you're my favorite, my pet. Now cut for me. That's the shit that's happening. And so parents are in this tough situation that, this is why I say putting our own gas mask on. With parents, I said, you need to take care of yourself. You need to learn self-love. You need to be emotionally regulated. You need to understand what curiosity is. It's not words or a question mark at the end of your sentence. Curiosity is really meeting your child on their level and talking to them in a way that makes them feel safe to say what they got to say. And they might not say it in a way that you understand, but you know that you're patient with them and that they'll work through it. And I use the example of like a kid falling down in the playground. Kids run up with curiosity. Oh my God, are you okay? What happened? But then a teacher will show up and go, I told you not to jump down that slide. The adults shame that kid. All the other kids were purely curious about what happened and how they can help.
Yeah.
So kids will share amongst kids because they're truly curious. And how I know this, and I'll wrap this all up of why I know this, is that even in my family, the kids were playing 20 questions with the adults. We were at the cabin.
Oh, that's fun.
And so we came up, they had to pick somebody, and we asked questions to figure out who they were talking about. Blah, blah, blah. Is this person here? Is this person there? Is this person got long hair? Whatever. And then somebody asked, is this person an adult? And you could see all the kids look at each other. And I don't know, are they adult? Da, da, da. So I said, I'll stand out, but you can come and ask me and we'll keep the game going. And the kid came up and went, is Aunt Becky a kid? Or an adult? They picked Aunt Becky. And I was struck with this because in the family, Aunt Becky gets teased because they think she's naive.
Oh.
But what I understood is that she's truly curious when she's talking to people. When she says, how did you do that? She really wants to know. And she wants to know the whole process. And these kids weren't able to recognize an adult because Becky was as curious as them about that. And I understood what curiosity was about. I understood where kids feel safe. They feel safe with Becky because Aunt Becky doesn't judge or assume when they talk. She just deals with them with curiosity.
Wow.
And I was like, I said to the rest of the family, we could learn from Aunt Becky.
Oh, yeah.
We all laugh at her because we think she's naive and, oh, why? I'm curious. She's not. She's just truly curious with people, and it's a beautiful thing. And kids aren't able to recognize that she's an adult because she talks to them in a way that's safe. Because kids intrinsically know that they got to hide things from parents. Their parents are going to dole out punishment, shame, judgment, assumptions. And that's unfortunately tying back to this, why this makes this such a perfect storm. Is that these kids find community within these groups.
Yeah. And they need the support. They need the support. So if they find the support, of course, it's like, I'm drawn to support. I'm drawn to what seems like love, right?
Yeah. Attention.
The Aunt Becky thing is so cool, man. We could all aspire to be like Aunt Becky, especially with kids. I mean, and with adults too, but I relate to that because I'm often too distracted by work and stress and life to really take some of the moments that I want to take. And I'm so lucky, like thinking back again about my kid coming to me yesterday about his feelings getting hurt. Yesterday was a Sunday, and on Sundays we take the day off from tech. We do, we playfully call it Sunday Shabbos. and from Sunday morning when we wake up to when we go to sleep, no phones, no outside world. We'll use our phones to like play music and stuff, but like we won't check our messages. I actually configure my screen so I can't even see my notifications. I can just open my music.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it was a Sunday, and it's because I took the day off, and I was sitting in my chair in my bedroom looking out the window, and my kid came in crying, and I got to sit with him for 10 minutes or whatever it was and just be like, oh, I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to process what you're saying. I'm not here to judge you. I appreciate you telling me these things. If it was any other day of the week, I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't have had the capacity, like just where I'm at right now. And so it's when I think about, I always think about it in this concept that I don't know if I made it up or if I heard it from somebody and just didn't realize, but attention as a currency. So like we have time and we have attention, like human currencies. And so subconsciously, I think often our time and our attention is just, it just goes, it gets taken, it goes here, it goes there. But if you can step back and be like, well, where am I actually intentionally, or am I intentionally putting my attention and my time here and here and there? And that's what I told my kid yesterday, because there's like some friends. He's got this group of friends. Well, this part of the group is mean to him, and this part of the group is nice to him. I was like, hey, well, like, which of those friends are easy to be friends with? Oh, it's so and so. Okay, so you can choose if you want to give those friends more of your attention, because those are the friends that are easy to be friends with. Those are the friends that are good for you.
Good dad.
You know, thanks, man. It was a very beautiful, like such a cool moment. And it's because I took the day off from my phone and from work, both, that I was able to be there for that.
And that's you can't be that 100% of the time. Just you got to. Judgment and assumptions help survive and get us through life and whatever and all that stuff, but making sure that you have those moments of safe spaces, like you say, your Sunday, or just every evening going into the bedroom and sitting with them and talking about their day or whatever. Just make those moments happen. And I think exactly what you're saying is it's not about figuring out how we can get more time so we can spend more attention on more things. It's about checking out how much you're consuming, or how much of your attention are you giving away. Hold that back and realize. I learned it on the side of like just finances when I separated and I moved to a small island for a while. And I was like, I can work 2 days a week and I just consumed less.
Yeah.
I got myself under maybe spending $1,000 a month.
Oh, fantastic.
That
sounds like freedom.
That's with my rent and everything. And then we were on the island, we were bartering trade too. And I was like, there's something more meaningful with barter and trade and cash transactions with your neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
Where this is where I kind of go to that, is that the whole economy and everybody involved with it is all about taking a bit of that money between the transaction with your village and your neighbor and your family.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And there's a comedian that talks about that. He goes, do you know they turn the stock market off every night? And then they go, it's a bubble. It's going to burst. Everything. He's like, don't turn it back on. but there's poor people and there's rich people. And he's like, well, print more money. Well, that's going to devalue the dollar. Let's say it doesn't. Everything is made up.
Everything's made up. Yeah, exactly.
So true is that we've put so much importance on this made up thing, and we forget that the importance is that human connection.
Yeah.
And that's being whittled away not just in divisiveness of sports teams and municipal boundaries and civil pride and national pride to just divide against fellow human beings. Now we're dividing over our opinions,
Right.
how much that we didn't know about another person. And this is why I had this talk at work. It's like, we used to show up at work with other carpenters and work with each other and knew that we could rely on each other on a certain capacity to work the day, be safe, and get the job done. But now I'm walking into shops where I already know the opinions of a guy that I've barely met because he's on Facebook.
Oh boy.
And now I know his politics and his religion and whatever his feelings are about this and his worldview, but I haven't developed a relationship with him where I respect him and I can work with him, and we're doing it the wrong way around now.
Yeah.
And I think that's by design, because the more that we're fighting against each other, the more control and power they have over us to just keep pulling the strings of us.
That's right.
Anyways, yeah, the positive side of it, though, I think we're learning is that with social media, we're learning that maybe we don't need to be such individuals. Maybe we do need to be part of the community, and whatever we know and feel needs to be given back to that community.
Yeah.
And what we know and our skills, what we know, what we bring to a community is as equal as what anybody brings to a community.
Oh yeah.
That was what I was learning about feminism. It's not about women doing men's jobs or men doing women's jobs. It's about nobody is looked down upon for their contribution to a village or a community.
Yeah. The most important thing is the contribution itself.
Yes.
And like, what do you bring? And what? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like just even having a community like that's something that like just I think a lot of people just don't have, and it's a very that's the luxury and the wealth in life is having a community and like having a tribe. I think,
Well, a lot of my community now is online. You're becoming part of it.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is my work right now. I do have family and friends across Canada, but it doesn't feel like I'm in a village necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to build that again, and I want to build it in a positive way.
Yes. Well, man, on that note, I like that as a cap off to the conversation, ending on a very positive note of just the more we can spend time and focus on loving each other, the better off we'll be, man, no matter what happens.
Yep.
And Jason, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been very, very impactful on me in so many ways. And I hope that a lot of people listen to this, and I'll share it as wide as I can. And I think that I love the fact that you have stuck with us, like literally stuck with us, because in your story, I know you mentioned that you weren't too keen on that for a while, and that you're able to be here with us and you're able to bring love and bring positivity and help others. Thank you very much. And cheers, man.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, Jason.
I appreciate what you're doing. You're a good man.
Thank you very much. All right. Talk again sometime, I hope.
Yes, definitely. Let's keep in touch.
All right, Jason. See you, man.
Bye-bye.